All right, it's 6 o'clock. Ron Kirk, are you there?
I'm here.
Amy, are you there?
That's sure.
Yes.
Okay, Amy's there. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting, special meeting of the Board of Adjustment to order. Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller? Mr. DeLumo? Mr. Malta?
Here.
Mr. Manel?
Here.
Mr. Good? Mr. Van Wagner?
Here.
Mr. Worrell?
Here.
Mrs. Beal?
Here.
Mr. Mamie?
And BOA.com, right? Is that where you sent it?
Mr.
Okay,
Mamie?
I still don't have your contract, so I'm gonna text you my email.
We might need to mute you.
Amy, please mute everyone but yourself and the chairman, please.
Amy, where were you?
I was at Mr. Mamie.
Okay.
Mr. Ashkenazi?
Here.
Chairman Shepherd.
Here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 board members. Okay, before we begin, I won't ask you to stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is a continued case, Hillel School, Block 34.03, Lot 2, 2.01, 5.01, 5.02, and 6, 1025 Deal Road, Ocean Zone R3. This is an application to construct an early learning annex building, high school building, relocation and construction of a firehouse building with associated site amenities with necessary variances for waivers, among other variances to driveways, landscaping, lighting, and signage. Attorney for the applicant, Jennifer S. Krimko. Ms. Krimko, where are we starting tonight?
Good evening, Mr. Shepherd. For the record, Jennifer Krimko from Ansel Grimm & Aaron on behalf of the applicant. Here's what I propose. I know that we left off at the last meeting with the public questioning the witnesses who had gone up to that point. We have made changes to the plan since then. What I would like to do is reintroduce Matt Sharrow, have him briefly go over the changes to the plan, and then again reopen to the public for questions. But I just want to make sure of a couple things. The first one is I don't see Bill Fitzgerald. Are we?
I'll make a phone call and find out where Bill is while you guys are.
While you're
starting.
doing that, I'm going to move some more items into evidence. So we left off at A13. So A14, and I have PDFs of all of these to put up on the board when it comes to it. A14 is an overall site rendering dated 4/29/21. A15 is an aerial overlay dated 4/29/21. A16 is a site plan rendering, as you can guess, 4/29/21. A17 is 2 sheets revised from the original site plan set, sheet 7 and sheet 11, and those are revised 4/13/21. So that's A17. A18 is the revised signage plan prepared by MMA, and that is revised through 4/15/21. A19 is a aerial with red marks, as I'll put it up, delineating the current Hillel property on the east side of Route 18 and the additional 22.5 acres that is owned by the school on the other side of Route 18. And that's A19. And then finally, A20 are updated color renderings of the site. And we'll have the engineer go through that.
Mr. Kirk, is Mr. Fitzgerald coming?
You're muted, Ron.
Muted. There we go.
Okay, Bill will be here within the next 3 to 5 minutes tops.
Okay.
Depending upon the traffic.
Yes, yes.
Do you suggest we wait?
I would say we do.
I think we should, because most of the changes that were made in response to Bill and Jim's letters that we
Okay.
got yesterday.
Okay. So why don't we give him a couple of minutes? Okay?
Okay, and while we're waiting, just a housekeeping. Mr. Worrell, I lost you on the screen, but I know you're
I'm
here.
here. I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Did you have the opportunity to listen to the first 30 minutes of the last meeting?
No, I did not.
Okay, so in the event we get to a vote tonight, Mr. Shepherd, Mr. Worrell unfortunately won't be able to participate in the vote, but he can obviously participate in the hearing.
Okay.
And then also, just note for the record that I see Mr. Fuller is here as well. I don't think he was here initially.
Hey, everybody.
There you go. How are you?
I have a question for Amy.
Yes,
You sent us 7 separate emails today of 7 different packages. Can you tell me what packages we'll be looking at as we go along? Or do I have?
yes, it's the board packet, and then I sent the PDF separate because every time I tried to group them together, it wouldn't send because it was too large.
Okay, thank you.
So
Well, this-
yeah, open the board packet and it's in the order that, and then it had the reports from the professionals attached to the board packet. Everything
Amy,
else is PDF.
Amy, while we're waiting for Bill, could you make me a host so I can share my screen? Because I'm going to
Yes.
need to.
Yep.
Hey, Amy, it's John Fuller. I don't see any emails from you coming into me today. Could you flip them to me?
You didn't get any emails from me today?
No.
So
I don't know how you
suggest
didn't. We all got.
check your junk email first before you have Amy redo it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, John, and they had PDFs attached. You probably, and large ones might have went into your spam.
Maybe. Let's see.
By the way, is everyone else on pins and needles as to who the Jets are gonna pick?
I'm a Dolphin fan.
Oh, no, Ron.
So I'm sorry, but anyone that's pitiful will definitely be, endeared on my end of the
We'll make
door.
it look good.
I refuse to watch the politics of football.
Well, it amazes me how it's an event watching stuff that can just be sent to your phone when the pick is made.
Yeah.
Amy, I think you made yourself host again. I can't share.
Yeah, I had to sign in differently, so I'm gonna do
Okay.
it right now.
Great, thank you.
You should be all set now.
And there's Mr. Fitzgerald. Perfect
Yep.
timing.
Did you get it, Jen?
Yep, let me see. Yep, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay.
Bill Fitzgerald, you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Sorry about that. I fell asleep.
that's okay. I do that every afternoon. I drool on myself.
Well, I was trying
Most
to do
of all,
it
I'm reading
earlier, so I
emails.
didn't do it during this meeting.
Okay, Jennifer.
Thank you very much. So as the board knows, after the last meeting, we had the opportunity to meet in technical review with Bill and Jim. We made some changes to the plans per that, not all of them, as is reflected in Bill and Jim's letters, plural. Since we got those letters, we have internally agreed, and I'm going to stipulate on the record to, and you'll hear through our witness, we're agreeing to a lot of what is in those letters as well. We unfortunately did not have an opportunity to revise the plans yet to reflect that, but it will be testified to by Matt Sharrow. And as I'd indicated at the beginning, I'm going to reintroduce Matt Sharrow. He was sworn at the last meeting. He remains under oath. I'm going to have him walk through the exhibits that we moved in and the changes that were made on the exhibits, as well as the additional changes we're agreeing to make in order to address Bill, Jim's, and the Environmental Commission's concerns. And I want to thank you for sending me that letter in advance. It was actually a very helpful letter, and we're going to be able to comply with all of it. And then reopen up to the public for questions for the witnesses that have testified thus far.
Please
So-
remind us
That working.
what Mr. Sharrow's
I will.
function
will.
is here,
Yes, Mr.
Thank you.
Sharrow is the project engineer.
and he has been previously sworn.
He has. So if I
Okay.
could, Matt, show your face. There you are.
I'm here.
Thank you. So Matt, I'm going to start with what I moved in as Exhibit A19. And again, we're just going to set the foundation for when the planner testifies as to the variances we need. But I think that this is a good one to start to better orient the board and the public as to how much land Hillel actually owns in that area. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so Matt, this exhibit was an aerial downloaded from Google Earth and marked up by me, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and what does it reflect?
So basically reflects on the right side, it has a red highlight around the existing Hillel properties. As you can see, the school to the left side of that highlighted area. And then you see the synagogue to the top and the existing Copper Gables at the intersection. Notice the firehouse is not highlighted. So then on the left side of Route 18 is running through the middle of the image here. On the left side, you have approximately 22.5 acres also owned by Hillel.
So while it's not part of the application, the Hillel parcel is really how many acres? 40 something acres large?
Yeah, so in proposed conditions, it'll be about 48.33 acres.
Okay, but for the fact
Can I
that,
just- Excuse me, Jennifer, was there a statement as to the amount of acreage on the right-hand side of the developed portion?
yes, that was addressed in the first application and the second one. We can certainly repeat it again.
Yeah, my notes, thank you. Could you?
How many acres on the,
So with the proposed subdivision that we have in the application, it'll be 28.52. Let me just make sure I'm confirming that right. That's 25.82. Sorry, switched a couple up there. So
Thank you.
25.82 acres proposed with the subdivision.
okay.
Thank you.
But for the fact that the highway was constructed and bisects the property, the land, the Hillel property is close to 50 acres.
That is correct.
Okay. And now would you like me to start with the aerial overlay? Well, let's go through the aerial overlay and talk about the changes that were made as shown on the plan. And then let's talk about what additional changes we're going to make in response to the board engineer, board planner, and the environmental commission.
Sure. So this is Exhibit A15, I believe, aerial overlay. So real quick, the big changes that were made here were the parking in the main parking field to the high school and the new early learning school. As part of the recommendations from the previous hearing, we made this parking stalls 9 feet wide, which is traditional for use such as this. We were able to gain 9 more parking spaces with that change to 9 foot wide parking spaces. What we were able to do also is those center islands in the middle, the end island caps. Previously, they were about 5.5 to 6 foot. We've been able to bump those up to 9 foot in size, which would increase that landscaped island as well there. One of the other big parking changes was the addition of the previously approved banked parking spaces for the synagogue. That adds another 16 parking spaces. Excuse me. So with the 16 and the 9, that's 25 additional parking spaces added to the site, which brings you up to 353 parking spaces, or a parking ratio of 1 per 622 square feet, which is pretty much the best it's been since in 25 years.
Okay, so going back and reiterating the testimony from the first hearing, in 1996, this board approved a parking ratio of 1 space per 669 square feet, correct?
Correct.
And then in 2011, approved 1 space per 696. So that means for a certain amount, for the amount of building that there is, that's how much parking per square foot of building, right?
That is correct. Yep.
And so when you say that it's now going to be proposed at 1 per 621 square feet, that means we have more parking per building size than we have since 1996.
That is correct.
Okay, so it's an improvement over 96 and 2011, and more importantly, an improvement over the last time we were here.
Correct.
Okay, great. So what other changes were made?
Also, just want to note, I think there was a question about back to school night and the amount of parking. So in discussions with the applicant, what they do for back to school night is they split up into different levels. So not all the students are going to back to school night at the same time for all the different levels of the school complex. And then they also, if there's if one level or a couple age groups have more than enough kids, then they'll split it into 2 different nights for those kids. So there's always ample parking for situations and events like that.
So we have 353 spaces proposed, and what's the max that you were advised that they would ever have for any type of event, since they don't have school-wide events?
300, 400, something like that.
No.
Not the answer she wants.
Well, no, it's not the answer I want. It's not the correct answer.
Hold on, let me check my notes. I'll have to come back to that. I gotta find in my notes.
Okay. Would it,
Oh,
okay, that,
sorry, got it. Sorry, I doubled it. It was 100 to 150. Sorry.
not sure why you doubled it, but okay.
I don't know either.
I don't know if you were hired by some of the neighbors, but
No, 100 to 150 per group.
Okay, very good. So for the last 25 years, based on a lower parking requirement, there has not been a parking problem for events as far as you understand?
As far as I know, no.
And we don't anticipate that there would be now, since we're actually improving the parking.
We are adding parking, that is correct.
Okay, great. So go ahead, you can continue on.
One of the other, while we're sticking to the parking at the high school and early learning center, one of the other recommendations for that was the increasing the light pole height in this parking area to, from 16 feet, which is permitted, to 24 feet. We were requesting 24 feet at the firehouse, and the 24 feet gives a better distribution of light, as discussed by your board engineer at the last hearing. So we increased that those heights. So we'll be requesting a waiver, additional waiver, but the waiver for the high school parking lighting as well.
Okay.
And we as far as that goes, we are requesting the same variances as last time as far as lighting goes, which was the proximity to the property line for a light pole and the lighting at the driveways over the 0.25 foot candles. One of the other, at the corner of the intersection of Deal Road and Poplar Road, one of the comments last time was the basin and the look of the basin from Poplar Road as you're driving down Poplar Road or up Poplar Road. So what we did there was we basically changed the shape of the basin a little bit, pulled it away from Poplar Road. Remember, we had a big green space between Deal Road and the basin. So we pulled the basin away from Poplar Road, made it a little closer to Deal Road, maintained the same volume, maintained the same size, all the same design, just reoriented the size a little bit. And along with that, we were able to add a significant amount of plantings along Poplar Road and at the corner of Deal Road and Poplar Road to really screen that entire basin, as it was a concern at the last hearing. We've also put a timber guide rail, a timber post and rail fence around the top berm of the basin to really just screen that basin. So vehicles, people driving up and down the road. And this is exhibit
820.
820, okay. This is
And
exhibit
that's-
820, a render prepared by MMA Architects. This basically shows kind of a bird's eye view of the project from the intersection of Deal Road and Poplar Road. And as you can see, we added that post and rail fence around the top berm of the basin and some significant landscaping at the corner and along Poplar Road.
Hey, Matt, since
Yes.
you're talking about landscaping, the Environmental Commission had concerns about the tree choice here and that it was going to grow too big, and the oak trees and the amount of acorns that they would yield. And were the board to approve the application, we would agree to work with the Environmental Commission to satisfy them as to the plant choices?
Yes, of course, we would definitely work with them on the size of the plants at the corner and the types of species for the street trees instead of the red oaks.
Okay, and then there was also a concern from them with regard to a tree that's worth saving by the existing firehouse.
Yes, the
With the-
yellow
with the-
flowering magnolia.
Okay, and we would work with them to not only save that, but relocate that to an appropriate location?
Of course, yes.
Okay, and I know we didn't get there yet, but as long as we're talking about trees, both Mr. Fitzgerald and the Environmental Commission had suggested evergreen landscaping around the entirety of the tennis court, and we would agree to that as well.
Yes.
Okay, and this is a sample, but we're making additional changes on the tennis court as well, which we'll go over in a minute. But effectively, we're willing to work with the Environmental Commission and Mr. Fitzgerald and Jim Higgins to come up with a landscape scheme to fully buffer the tennis courts from view.
Yes, that's correct.
And while we're talking about the tennis courts and understanding the concern by the board's professionals, we are also willing to eliminate, sorry about that, going back and forth. We're willing to eliminate the lighting for the tennis courts in their entirety. Initially, we had requested that we have shut off at 11 o'clock, and we are hereby amending that to eliminate those lights in their entirety.
That's correct.
Okay, and then,
Sorry, go ahead.
and then lastly, they were on an east-west axis, and we're going to reverse them back to north-south. And it's my understanding, is that correct?
Yeah, so we're going to rotate them back 90 degrees to face north-south. And then,
And additionally, you're going to regrade such that you won't have a retaining wall in the front yard, so there'll be no issue with regard to the wall fence height.
yes, so currently along Poplar Road and Poplar Place, there is a, at the highest, a 3-foot high retaining wall. What we plan on doing is regrading that area and removing the retaining wall from the front yard and from the front of Poplar Place, even though it won't be a front yard after the application. But we will remove that, and then therefore we'll have the 6-foot high estate fencing as the perimeter fencing and the 10-foot high fencing for the tennis courts.
So it's the same variances we saw before, the 6-foot for the, and we did change it to estate fencing, as can be depicted here, which is basically the black aluminum.
Yep, this is an image looking at the intersection of Poplar Road and Poplar Place at the tennis courts with some screening and some trees along there. And you can see behind the evergreen trees there, you can see almost like a black wrought iron fence that is about that's going to be 6 foot high. That's being proposed as the perimeter fencing. It won't be solid, it'll have the picket fence look.
And that's going to encircle the entire campus.
That is going to encircle the entire campus down Poplar Road, around the intersection, or around the firehouse, and then back along Deal Road, the frontage on Deal Road.
Okay, and going to that effect, in looking at, sorry. I just want to get to the right sheet. It's going to be screened, that fence is going to be screened from the roadway on Deal Road, by plantings. There's ample plantings in front of it, correct?
Yes. Yeah, so I don't know if you can see it in that image, but
I'm
we
looking
discussed
for,
this
I
last
know that
time.
we had one. I
Yeah,
can't,
we discussed this last time. There's street trees along there as well as some low shrubs intertwined to really screen that fence from Deal Road.
okay,
If you want to stick to that, the rotating the tennis courts and the fence, we are now creating a 25-foot setback, plus or minus 25-foot setback from the Poplar Road property line to that closest corner of the tennis court.
okay, and it'll be, so it's some 30-something feet from the actual roadway.
Yeah, about 34.5 feet from the actual curb line of Poplar Road.
Okay, but it's less of a concern also now that there's no lights, and that it's going in the north-south orientation the way it's supposed to.
That is correct, with the bigger buffer.
Okay, I think we went over all of the changes. Are there any other additional changes?
I think I had the one more, we moved that sign from Poplar Road.
Oh, that's right.
Yep, we moved that sign, the monument style sign from the intersection of Poplar Road and Poplar Place, where for the entrance to the school, what we did was we pushed that back basically to the east or west side of that exit drive from the loop. Yep, exactly where this cursor is pointing. So that's the exit to the bus drop off and the student drop off loop. So we put that sign back there and we lowered it by 4 feet. So it used to be 22 feet high. Now it's 18 foot high.
Okay, so we reduced it in size and we moved it off of the roadway.
That is correct.
Okay. And I
And I
think
believe
that's,
while we're on signage, I think there was one other question on the intersection signage of Poplar Road.
oh, yeah, that's right.
So I have those numbers for you. If you want to go to that, yeah, first rendering of Exhibit A20. So at the bottom of the screen, that Welcome to Ocean sign, landscaped area at the intersection of Deal Road and Poplar Road. The actual Welcome to Ocean part of the sign is 34.5 square feet, and the actual brick part or the wall part of it, I'll call it the decorative wall, that's about 230 square foot in size.
Okay, great.
I think that would be it.
So, Mr. Chair, that's the summary of our changes. We'd certainly be willing to reopen for questions from the board first, and then obviously the public.
Any questions from the board?
I have one, Henry, if I may.
Yes.
So, Jen, to your expert, the very last rendition there and the testimony regarding the width of the sign, Welcome to Ocean, the evergreens behind that, what height will they be?
Well, we agreed to change those, so it's going to be subject to the Environmental Commission.
Okay, you did say that earlier. Okay, but you don't have any. What I don't recall what that is.
Apparently, the height that we proposed could grow to some 30 or 40 feet. And the Environmental Commission does not think that that would be advantageous. So we're happy to work with the board and its professionals and the Environmental Commission to put whatever trees they think would be most pleasing there.
Well, and I'll just say, because that's, the mouth of my development, right? I go out every day and those trees that are there, I know they're starting to fail, some of them. But that the height I think is better. I don't want to, discount the Environmental Commission's expertise in this, but and certainly any safety and sightline stuff, that's where I think Bill comes in more. But I think the more height, the better, because we're not, and I forget, but I don't think we're changing the grade too much there on top in terms of where it comes off that sidewalk that's in front, right?
No, again, and we're happy to keep the trees we proposed, which according to the Environmental Commission's report indicated would, and I'm gonna.
It's about 8 to 12 foot high mature.
No, but it says that they could reach the height of 40 to 60 feet high.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what they're saying. But I guess what I really meant was when they're planted initially, they're going to be 8 to 12. Is that what you said? I'm sorry.
Well, the Environmental Commission recommended a full height of 8 to 12.
Tops,
A
max.
mature height of 8 to 12 there.
Yeah, I mean,
But what are we showing it as planting height, Matt?
Planting height, just give me 1 second. Sorry. It's probably 5 to 6 typically for a tree like that. Just give me 1 second. I apologize.
Well, regardless, we're happy to do what the board recommends. So, Mr. Wagner,
I guess my question had a comment in there as well, which is having lived for 20 plus years with that scape as you come out, as elevated as it is, that, taking down what's been there and replacing it with 10 or 12 foot evergreens is going to leave it with a very different look. And, anyway, okay, that's just my point. And it wasn't really to you or your expert, just to the
Right.
response. To the
understood,
environmental.
but as you'd indicated, they are failing and they are definitely coming out. So we're
Yeah.
happy to work with the board as to what they would like to see in its stead.
Yeah, and I understand that too. I watch them. I mean, every year there's another one, so that's what it is. But anyway, my point is, I think, for what it's worth, I think that more scape there, if you will, in terms of frontage is better. But I know that you also can't plant mature 20-foot trees. So
Right. Not if you want them to live.
right.
Excuse me, that's not exactly the case.
Okay, though, then good. I'd like to hear more about that then.
We plant 4.5 to 5 inch trees regularly at the college. They're quite tall, they're quite full, and they survive. And that may be not warranted here. That's a lot, but I'm just telling you that you can plant quite large trees, and putting a bunch of whips in there that are 5 or 8 feet tall is just not adequate.
Okay, Bill, that's where I was heading.
But I think we can all work together to resolve this. Jim and I do it all the time. It's not something that is foreign to us or the first time around. We can work with the Environmental Commission. Ed over there is a really good guy to work with. It's not a problem to come up with a consensus if we sit down. This is really not the venue for that kind of detailed discussion.
Gotcha. Thank you, Bill.
Any other questions from the board members?
Chair Henry, it's Shawanda. I have a question.
Yes.
Can you just repeat? I heard the portion about the lights being removed from the tennis courts. Earlier, you had mentioned that other lights, are those additional lights, and where are those lights that you mentioned earlier?
So yeah, so we are removing the tennis court lighting, but the additional light, they're not additional lights. They're lights within the parking lot area, the proposed parking lot area. We are raising them from 16 feet high, that's permitted, to 24 feet high, that would match the firehouse, and that was per the recommendation of at the last hearing. It basically what the 24, and it was described, I think, at the last hearing, that the 24 gives a better distribution over the parking lot.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
Chairman, I have a question if I could.
Yes.
Parking spaces, could you give me the new parking space number one more time? I apologize.
Sure. So total parking space, proposed parking spaces over the whole lot?
Yeah.
353.
353.
Very dyslexic today.
And there's currently how many?
Give me 1 second. Like existing today?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
And then my next question is going to be if the existing number you have, if that includes the parking lot at Copper Gables.
Oh, we had offered, I think we offered that testimony the last time. Matt, we gave the number of just
the uses, just the specific uses. So we gave the number of, with the heights of the school and the synagogue, We gave the number for the Copper Gables and we gave the number for the firehouse.
Oh, I see. Okay. So usually we talk about, space per square foot. But with the school, it might be helpful to think about space per student. Do you have any idea spaces per student right now that are being used for the school?
I
And
don't
then how
have that.
that'll compare?
That'll be,
Don,
that'll,
I think a more important thing, not just spaces per student, but where you have high school students, some of whom may be driving, because that was a suggestion. I think that the whole factor as far as number of parking spaces and whether it's equivalent to what's there now or in the past really has to relate somehow to the number of high school students that are of driving age.
Well,
again,
that's true, and there are high school students right there now, right, that can drive.
yeah.
So you have.
No,
it's
Mr.
like-
Fuller, they can't. So if
Oh,
I
no one's
could
allowed to
just,
drive now?
if I could go back and just remind the board of the testimony from our traffic engineer at the last hearing, we went over this in great detail. The high school students are not allowed to drive now. And there was testimony with regard to the number of students who are bused, the number of students who are dropped off, the number of staff now versus the number of staff proposed. And even with the full staff build out, there was an excess of more than 50 extra spots than what would be needed. So it was testified to at the last meeting that seniors would be allowed to drive on a lottery basis based on the head rabbi and the principal, but only 50 of them would be permitted to drive. So there'd be 50 parking permits given out for seniors. No other students are permitted to drive at all. And that would be something that we offered as a condition of approval the first time around.
And that's the point I was trying to make, is that in the current conditions, the prior conditions, there was an excess of parking. Now, what's being proposed, there's not going to be an excess of parking because there will be 50 students driving and those excess spaces will be occupied. So I don't have a problem with that. But the representation that the parking situation is better now than it was, I think is misleading because of the fact that the actual number of spaces that will be occupied are going to be more than what's currently occupied.
And as well as the testimony has been that we're talking about ratio of stalls per square foot or square feet per stall, either way, same thing. And that's one measure. But if you look at ITE studies of parking and parking projections, how good a measure has that proven to be? They have some statistical information on that. I'm not saying that the board won't grant your variance, maybe making it better is sufficient. But I mean, we need to know if there are better indicators in terms of statistical studies that are part of the public body of knowledge that's used today. If there are better indicators of required parking for a school than floor area.
So, and to respond to that, I believe that was asked and answered by the traffic engineer at the last meeting.
I don't believe that was. Otherwise I wouldn't be raising it.
So I think that we can have him come back up and he can respond to that as well. We use that ratio for the reason that is how this application has been approved for the last 25 years. So we wanted to compare apples to apples. The only difference being that we're proposing to allow some seniors to drive.
And I'm with you 100%.
No, understood.
I understand that. What I'm trying to say is that the campus is going to change significantly with this application, which is fine if it gets approved. I have no problem with any of that. That's not my decision. All I'm saying is, before we make a final decision, let's look at what the ITE has done in terms of studies and if floor area is the best predictor for purposes of the board gauging the variance or not the variance, or how much of the variance it wants to grant, that's all. I'm not saying that you're doing anything wrong. I'm saying that there's more information maybe that just should be on the record.
Okay, and we can certainly have the traffic engineer address that when questions are done with Matt.
Any other questions from the board members?
I have one question for Jennifer, just to clarify the record.
Oh, wait, Jim, can I, before you ask, may I just point out one thing? And I'm sorry, I just wanted to point out, we're adding 25 spaces that were never even contemplated at the synagogue that weren't accounted for before. So the use of those excess was before, the 50 excess we had was before we added the additional 34 spaces.
Which is
So,
true.
again, when the testimony from the traffic engineer at the last meeting was, we're going to have more than 50 excess based on his anticipated use of spots, based on the historic use of the site. And that's why the seniors were going to be permitted to drive. And that has since now increased the excess by another 34 spaces. And he'll address that also, but I just wanted to clear that up for the record. I'm sorry, Jim.
Okay, that's okay. And I don't know if this really is pertinent to the application, but it relates to the two parcels on either side of Route 18. I don't think, first of all, that the parcel on the west side of Route 18 has any relationship to this application. But Jennifer, you made a statement that the highway Route 18 bisected the property into the two parcels. Is the representation that over 50 years ago, when the state acquired the right of way for Route 18, that this was all one large parcel that was under common ownership? Or do we not know? I mean, there's no doubt that
I don't know.
it's between the two parcels.
I don't know. I don't know for sure.
Yes.
And it's not, we're not including it in this. It just goes to, and you'll hear from the planner as to the intent and purpose of the ordinance and why there's a certain size requirement, and how you'll hear the testimony with regard to the buffers to the surrounding area and things like that. So the fact that we own that parcel is significant. Not that we meet the requirement. We're still seeking the variance.
Okay, that's fine. But I just wanted the record to be clear. I wasn't sure whether or not that was all one large parcel that had been bisected, or whether it was maybe two parcels and the state went up between the two of them.
Yeah, it's my understanding that 50 acres were purchased some 50 plus years ago, and there was a paper street, but it was undeveloped at that time.
Okay.
And then they turned that into the paved highway.
Any other questions from the board?
I have a question.
Who is this?
Jack Mamie.
Hi, Jack. Go ahead.
I apologize. This may have, I don't know if this was testified at the last meeting. Do you know what the change in impervious cover compared to what's existing would be?
I can get back to you on that. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I will get that number for you.
And a small follow-up to that, would the applicant consider pervious pavement in some of the parking areas to mitigate some of that cover?
Well, let's just take a look. I believe we're under the coverage. Yeah, so 80% is permitted. And it looks like we're proposed at only 59%. Is that correct, Matt? I'm looking at your plans.
40 for the school and the synagogue, it's 40%. For the firehouse, it's 59%.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at that. So we're under.
That's correct.
Okay.
Henry, I have one follow-up when
Sure.
So Jen, or for your professional as well, I noticed, I mean, clearly the Poplar building there has been in a little disrepair over the years and everything. It seems to me it's gotten a bit worse, the way it looks, especially as you hit the corner of Poplar and Deal there. But also I noticed that it seems like there's more parking going on right contiguous to the building. And I just wonder what that's a result of, because it hadn't been previously, as I could tell, in the last, other than the last 2 months.
I'm not sure that I understand the question, Mr. Van Wagner.
So if you're coming, I'll call it north on Poplar towards Roller Road where Deal crosses it, you look to the right, and so you're looking down to where that access point is into the school and at the area, the back of the building there, and so there's a lot more parking that's going on by what I'd call what used to be and is no longer as well covered waste area with the white what am I thinking of? But white fencing that was around that. I think it fell down a little bit, but so there are a lot more cars parked behind Copper Gables building now, closer to the entrance that is accesses Poplar Road. So I'm just wondering why there's so much more parking going on there than there had been in the last several months. I'd never seen cars parked there. Obviously, that building's unoccupied. So I just wondered if you have an answer.
I don't have one right now. I can certainly find out.
Okay, because there hadn't been at all. There's at least 20 or 30 go by there parked. Maybe that's a little exaggeration. I can't tell you, but at least a dozen to 20 cars that park in that area now, where it was almost desolate for the time that Copper Gables was
Right. It may have been that. It may have been just that the school was utilizing it since they owned it now.
Well, no, I know that, but it's not. I mean, I'm just saying, I live right down the street from it. It's not. It's all of a sudden now it's more utilized as a parking space area than ever before, and I just wonder, what the overflow need is prior, predetermined.
Okay, well, the traffic engineer will be able to address that.
Okay, good.
I have a couple of questions too. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Bill, you're freezing and breaking up. I didn't hear anything you said.
Bill, if you can hear us, you're completely frozen.
Well, while Bill is coming
Did I
back,
lose you?
there he is. Bill? While he's coming back, are there any other questions from the board members? Okay. When Bill Fitzgerald comes back, we'll get back to him, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Since there's yes.
Well, I'm just going to ask, I don't know how it worked last time, how well it worked last time with regard to opening it as a free-for-all, or how you want to do it, if you'd like to reopen Matt first before we get any more traffic testimony.
I'm going to open Matt up to questions from the public.
Right.
Okay. So I'm going to ask the public for questions only, no testimony. If you make testimony, we're just going to move on. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. Yes, Ms. Lambert, please unmute yourself. Okay.
Marissa Lambert, 3 Kenneth Drive, Ocean Township.
Please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Okay. Your question?
Questions directed to Mr. Sharrow directly. The first has to do with the parking that you've been discussing. Could you tell me again, what is the minimum number of parking spaces that you are supposed to have without needing this variance?
Ken, give me 2 seconds to pull it up.
Sure.
For the school?
Yes, the reason why you're asking for the variance is that there was a minimum required. So can you tell me the number, which was the minimum that the township requires?
Per the ordinance for the proposed
parking lot.
Yep, it's 2,195 spaces.
2,195. And you have, and my question is, you've already answered how many you have. It was 800 and something, right? And then, so if you had to comply, where would you put the parking?
I didn't analyze the site for that.
Okay.
I don't think the 800 was the right number. Wasn't it 653?
Oh, I'm sorry. It was sorry, that's even less, 653. So then.
Is that the, let's.
No.
Just a sec. I have in my notes. Number
353 proposed.
353.
Oh, 353 rather than the 2,195 that were needed. Is that correct? Yeah. So could, we had the same question that one of the board members did. Could you relate it to people rather than space was one of our questions, but I heard that you were going to get back to that. And then I had the question, were you aware, like Mr. Wagner had pointed out, that already there was overflow from the parking lot onto the blocks that we live in of teachers and other people who park on our blocks because there are not enough spaces at the school when you made, you know, when you didn't expand it?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay, my husband, who also is an
What blocks are we speaking about?
Kenneth and David.
Okay, well, unfortunately, they're not supposed to park.
Well,
We can get
Mr.
into
Chair-
that some other time.
Mr. Chair, when
Yes.
Ms. Lambert has the opportunity to make comments, she can offer that.
I will, it's prepared. No, these are all going to be questions.
No. So the
Mr.
answer,
Sharrow. This is for Mr. Sharrow.
I understand it is, but I'm clarifying the record on behalf of the application. The question was asked and Mr. Sharrow said, no, he's not aware. So I'd ask Ms. Lambert to go to her next question.
Okay.
I'll go to my next. We were wondering, in the drawings, we didn't see the overhead power lines. And we were wondering what you're going to do with the overhead power lines that are there. So the question is, where are the overhead power lines? I'm sorry, I had to rephrase that. In your drawings.
Which overhead power lines?
Around the corner.
The one on the corner. Yes,
Down Poplar.
the ones down Poplar. They're all overhead power lines.
We're not affecting those.
They're
They're right off the curb line.
So they're staying, but they're
Yeah.
just not in the drawings.
The renders, they're on the site plans.
Okay. And my next question was about the bicycle lanes. We also didn't see, and we were wondering if you knew about the bicycle initiative that was made and approved in 2010 before you made the drawings to change the street and things, and that it was approved for Poplar. So we were wondering why that wasn't in the drawings either.
I'll have to defer to the traffic engineer on that, but I was not aware of the.
What is it called, David? It's called the Ocean Township Bicycle and Pedestrian Network Plan. And it was approved a bicycle lane on both sides in 2010.
On Poplar?
On Poplar.
Okay. That's a question for the traffic engineer.
Oh, sorry about that. So I'll ask that again then later. My final, or one of my final questions, when you were referring to the groups, like 100 to 150, you said we weren't clear. What groups were you talking about and how many groups of 100 to 150?
The different age levels in the school.
So each age level would have about 100 to 150. So how many age?
No, that's 100 and 150 per night of the back to school night.
Oh, that was only in regards to the back to school night.
Yes.
Back to school night.
This was all, the number of students was all testified to last time.
Right, the number of students that you're asking for, were the number of students, was the number of students 1,600 that you're asking for? And it's 1,000, and is it 1,000 existing now?
I don't have those numbers off the top of my head. I'll have to ask the applicant and get back to you on that.
Okay. David, do we have any other questions? I think you've answered most of our questions for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the public?
Yeah.
Yes. Annette Stein. Please unmute yourself.
Okay, I don't know if this is a question.
Please raise your right
Oh,
hand.
Sorry,
Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
yes.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Nanette Stein, Terrio, 8 David Street.
I still don't know how to do that.
And your question is?
My question is, and I don't know if it's for Mr. Sharrow or not, but where is the parking? What is the contingent parking while you're under construction? Where are people supposed to park?
That's a great question. So as part of this and part of the technical review meetings we've had, there will be phased plans provided for the different phases of construction.
Okay, with those phases though, if you take away the parking at Copper Gables before the parking lot is built at the high school, where are those 110 or more people supposed to park? Because that parking lot is being used now, correct?
I'm not aware.
You're not aware that the Copper Gables parking lot is being utilized now by Hillel?
I'm not the traffic engineer.
All right, do you know what phases? Can you explain the phases, or how do we find out the phases of building?
So they haven't fully been developed yet, but it would be obviously the relocation of the firehouse first, then building the early learning center along with the parking and the loop road, and then the high school.
And then the high school parking lot?
No, with the high school parking lot will become the early learning center, the parking lot for the early learning center and the high school, and the drop-off loop road.
Okay, so the parking lot, I don't understand. The parking lot for the early learning center is what's going to be utilized also for the high school?
It's one big lot.
Okay. All right, thank you. I guess I'll ask the other questions to the traffic engineer.
Any other questions from the public? Yes, Jackie. Please raise your right hand. Please unmute yourself first. You swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Becky Wenzel, Jungkunst, 610 Deal Road.
Your question is?
Well, I just, I haven't been able to follow every meeting, and I was just wondering, could you just outline how many variances are you prepared to approve tonight? Is this going to be the final variance approval for the whole project this evening?
Miss, who are you asking that of?
Whoever can answer it, I suppose.
The answer is that the applicant hasn't finished the case. When her case is fully presented, then anybody who wants to comment to the board will have the ability to comment or even bring witnesses.
Well,
At that point, let me finish, please.
Sure.
When everyone finished presenting evidence, both the applicant and anybody else who wants to speak, then the board will decide whether or not they want to go for a vote. That may be tonight, that may not be tonight. They don't know.
No, they were just talking about variances of parking spaces. So I thought, you know, in general, I could just get an idea.
I believe, and I would direct first of all, the applicant has to be taken as a whole. Each variance can be voted upon if the board seeks to do so, but nothing will be done until the entire case is presented and everyone has an opportunity to speak. Then the board will decide in what manner they would like to go forward with variances.
So will we go over all of that this evening?
I have no idea what's coming up with the presentation of the applicant or questions from the public, and whether or not we'll exceed our time limit tonight. We don't know.
And will you do traffic this evening?
That's not up to me. That's up to the applicant, what Ms. Krimko decided to present.
All right. So I'll hold my questions till
But
later.
we need to hear all of the testimony and all of the public before the board will decide how to proceed.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Other questions from the board, from the public? Yes, Miss Weisberg.
Yes, hi, I have a question.
Please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Cheryl Weisberg, 5 Oak Tree Lane in Wayside.
Your
I'm sorry, I
question?
didn't hear that. 5 what?
5 Oak Tree. I live 1/10 of a mile from the proposed application. 1 block.
Okay.
My question is, Mr. Sharo, where the firehouse exists today, is there a detention basin on the property?
No,
So by moving the existing firehouse to the corner, the township and the fire department will become responsible for a brand new retention basin, right?
correct.
So if in the future there are issues or problems with that detention basin, that will have to be mitigated or remediated by the taxpayers, is that correct?
That I'm not aware about.
Well, if the fire department owns it and they own the detention basin, then they're responsible for mitigating any stormwater issues that arise, correct?
If that's the deal that's worked out, yes.
Well, they're now owning that property. The premise of the application is to move the firehouse and swap the land, correct?
Correct.
So in doing so, they're acquiring that property as well as the new firehouse to be constructed and the detention basin.
Again, Matt's already answered to the extent that he can. I'd ask Ms. Weisberg. He answered he doesn't know who's responsible for the maintenance, if it comes from the township coffers, if the fire department has its own. I think he answered the question the best he could.
Who would be able to answer that question?
Perhaps the board engineer or the board planner or someone from the township.
Does Mr. Fitzgerald want to answer here?
Well, typically, the owner of a property with a stormwater basin on it maintains it. So that's the typical situation. We haven't discussed any options to that
First
yet.
of all, Bill. Yeah, Bill, first of all, there'd be some bonding out there on some maintenance bonds on the construction.
Yeah, but I think.
Post-construction.
Yeah, but I think the question is going long term, and I'm not sure that there's any. I don't know how all this. I don't know. Let me back up. I don't know much about the deal or the contract of who's obligated for what with regard to the land swap or what whose responsibilities or what. I have no idea. I have no. It hasn't been made part of the application.
Okay. I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna watch one of my town meetings now. Bye.
Right. But I mean, a board can look at it. The basin requires a change of grade of 2 feet. That's a variance. So, you know, the board can look at the overall picture. There's a lot of things going on here. We're just listening to the applicant present its case for the most part.
Bill, wouldn't we be required as the applicant to post the stormwater maintenance and escrow agreement and post the funds for that?
I don't know. It's usually the property owner, but if the applicant is willing to do that, that would, I think, satisfy the concern that I'm hearing in the question that was asked.
Well, my question just pertains to where the firehouse exists today. There is no fire department or District 1 or taxpayer because it is funded by the taxpayers, the fire department. So today there's no issue with water management.
Okay, I think it's something we can find out, and maybe at some point Ms. Krimko could advise us more, as well as the fire chief who was here last time, as to what their intentions are with that. I don't think any of our professionals or the engineer can answer that at this point.
But I think, Mark, to Ms. Weisberg's point, right? So if the obligation continues with the property in terms of stormwater management, it doesn't. It's not just the creation of the detention basin, but then the ongoing maintenance and requirement thereafter that flows with the land and the owner, which would be the fire department.
Unless there is another arrangement between the parties, or unless that the board in granting some variances wants to make
Right.
some
We don't have an,
requirements.
I'm gonna glad those variances. I think I'd like to know that arrangement.
okay, and again, the part that I was deferring to Bill and Jim was how the fire department or the Board of Fire Commissioners are funded. I understand that Ms. Weisberg is making a statement, even though it's question time, that it's funded by the taxpayers. I don't, that may be, there hasn't been any testimony from any of my witnesses to confirm that. So I was looking to the board's professionals to confirm that. But in the meantime, we will find out, one, how they're funded, and two, whether or not there's an agreement as to maintenance of that basin. But I would ask the board members and the public to recall Mr. Flanagan's testimony where he went on at length that all of the tremendous public benefits being gained by virtue of this application. I'm not going to reiterate them at length here, but as the head of the fire department for this district, they made the conclusion that what they were getting was a vast improvement in comparison to the detriments. That was his direct testimony, but certainly we can get that information.
Any other questions from the board? I'm from the public, I'm sorry.
This is Jim Bay. May I speak?
Who are you?
Hi, this is Jim Bay, 4 David Street.
Hold on.
You have to, I don't think, I think he's only in by telephone.
Okay, Mr. Bay, please raise your right hand.
Yes,
Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
yes.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Jim Bay, 4 David Street.
Okay, Mr. Bay, what's your question?
On the northwest corner, athletic fields, sports fields type things, before and sports fields after, could you give us a familiarization what occurs on the northwest with the sports fields? Are they able to continue with sports fields, or are there wetland considerations and they're no longer able to use the grandfathered sports fields?
There's no improvements or parts of this application touching the northwest sports field.
So what's there now will remain?
That is correct. There's no proposed changes to that sports field.
Thank you.
That corner, we are adding 5 parking spaces, but there's no changes to the actual field or the usage of the field.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the public?
Yes, here.
Who is this?
Sheila
Sheila who?
McCord. I'm waving.
I don't see you. Hold on. Okay. Please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes,
Please state your name and address for the record.
Sheila McCord, 4 David Street.
Please ask your question.
My question has to do with the new parking spaces that are at the synagogue, east of the synagogue. Is that one of the locations for the new lights that are going in?
I'm on mute. So these were the previously banked parking spaces. They were previously approved with a previous lighting design. So we'll use that same lighting design there.
These are not going to be on, oh, these are the 24-foot ones?
I'd have to look at the old design, but I'm not sure. But it was previously approved design for these spaces. So we're just going to implement that design.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the public? Ms. Lambert.
Yes, hi. We just had a few more questions. One we had dealt with a little bit in the last meeting, but we hadn't seen it on the drawing. So, and we're not sure if this is for you, but is there going to be a continuous sidewalk from the end and connecting on Poplar along the entire thing through the synagogue and connecting to the existing sidewalk? This is for Mr. Sharrow.
We're not changing anything that's within Poplar Road now. We're adding a sidewalk along Poplar Road where the firehouse is to Poplar Place.
In our last meeting, it had been, I thought, agreed upon.
No, it was requested at the last meeting.
Oh, requested. Okay. So then my next question is, did you study the light reflection? You had talked about light spillage, but I'm wondering if there was a study about the light reflecting. We are so close to all these structures, and we're wondering if you studied the light reflection.
No, we did the study per your ordinance. And we meet your ordinance.
Okay, with no, and that means
That your ordinance requires a certain foot candle and averages, and that's what we use to design this and analyze this site. And we meet those requirements.
thank you. I think those were our last two.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the public?
I have one or two more, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay. I keep dropping my internet connection here.
Okay.
So I started to ask a question earlier before, just as it broke off. The setback for the tennis courts now will be what? From Poplar Road?
Matt, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, I don't want to misquote myself here. Just let me bring it up real quick. So at the closest point, the fence for the tennis court will be 25 feet, 5 inches.
Okay. And
that's to the property.
Right, that's to the Poplar, that's the street line of Poplar Road, correct?
No, that's the right-of-way line, Bill, not the street.
That's what the street line is, Jennifer, the right-of-way line.
Yep.
Right.
Thank you. Okay.
He had also testified previously the distance to the road, so I just didn't want the public to get confused between.
The road is not the street line, that's the traveled way. So we'll get the terms out there and make them clear. Traveled way is the pavement, street line is the property line or the roadway line. They're the same thing, just depends on which side of it you're standing and looking. Okay, so you're 25 feet from the Poplar Road right-of-way line.
That is correct.
Correct? Slightly more, okay. And that's farther from the pavement. I think you indicated there's probably approximately another 7.5 feet to the edge of pavement.
About 9 feet, yeah, it's 30 to the edge of curb line. It's 34 feet, 6 inches.
Okay. And the tennis court fencing, do you have an idea what that's going to be yet? Is there a proposal on that? Is it going to be like black chain link?
It'll be black chain link, typical to other tennis court fencings that you see.
Well, I mean, there's all kinds of tennis court. If it's black vinyl clad chain link, and some landscaping around it, it's probably going to be a lot less visible.
Yep.
That's why I'm throwing that out there. Yep. It's actually better than the green, believe it or not. So, the basin that we talked about on the corner, I know there was a concern and a legitimate concern at the last hearing, and the town really doesn't like basins close to a roadway. So we had discussed at the technical review meeting. I saw the landscape rendering that you did, but I can't tell. Did you raise that berm up some too, like we talked about at the technical review meeting?
Not just a little bit. It's nothing that's a big change. What we did was we just changed the shape of it a little bit. So we pulled it in from Poplar and brought it a little closer. Remember, there was a big green space between Deal and the basin. So we just kind of shifted it around a little bit, maintained the same volume, and didn't really adjust the berming of it.
Okay, I mean, I think that's something we need to look at. I like the landscape plan a lot once we settle in on the trees, but I think the grading on the east side of that basin is going to be needed to be looked at carefully so that the basin really isn't visible.
Agreed.
To get back to Mrs. Weisberg's question, because I started to answer that and cut off again. I did the site plan for the firehouse, and then I also was an owner of Copper Gables for 19 years. So in those days, stormwater management wasn't required as it is today, which is why there was no basin on either of those properties. That's since changed dramatically. So we have to look at the maintenance situation, but the bottom line is it doesn't matter what you do anymore. Even single family homes of a certain size have to meet state and municipal standards for stormwater management. And even a single family home can be termed a major development under stormwater. It's just entirely different. That was in 1983, 84 era. So, with regard to, I guess that was pretty much it for right now. Okay, those are my questions at this point, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald. Any other questions from the public?
Yes, I have a question. My name is Margaret Boyce.
Please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Margaret Boyce, 514 North Edgemere Drive, West Allenhurst. And my question is about those basins. I'm wondering if it's possible to, instead of doing basins, doing rain gardens. And the river birch would be very happy to have wet feet like that, and you'd have trees. They'd be easier to maintain than extensive perennial gardening or anything. So rather than just letting the water percolate down, you could actually be filtering the water as it goes down towards the aquifer.
We said last time we would look into adding some green infrastructure to that basin as well as the other basin.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions from the public? Okay, Ms. Krimko.
Thank you. I'd like to recall Justin Taylor. He was sworn in at the last meeting, remains under oath. He was the engineer who provided the traffic engineering testimony.
He's traffic, correct?
Correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
So,
Mr. Taylor, remember you're under oath. Thank you. Go ahead.
So, Justin, you had the benefit of hearing the questions that were asked leading up to this point. One was with regard to, is there a better meter for the parking requirement here other than the per gross floor area? Are there published studies that would indicate whether or not we have adequate parking? And then there was a question about the bike lanes as well.
So to take the first part of that question, and Mr. Fitzgerald had mentioned the Institute of Transportation, or IT. They do have a publication called Parking Generation, which is currently in its 5th edition, which sets forth parking ratios for various land uses in the transportation engineering world. So we looked at that, and it does have a land use called private school, K through 12. However, there are only 3 studies that have been conducted over the last 25 years into this land use. And so when the number of studies is low, the Institute of Transportation Engineers actually recommends going to collect data or specific information relevant to the specific site that you're developing. And that's what we really utilize to develop the parking demand and our opinion that there's sufficient parking for this site. We looked at what generates parking demand for a school. Now, primarily it's the staffing. We are going to have at full build out 245 staff. You would then look at what's necessary for visitors. And on their current utilization of the site, we look to do between 10 and 20. And so we set aside 20 spaces for visitor spaces. And then as we testified at the last hearing, we were allocating out of the 328 that were approved at that or proposed at that point, another 50 towards the seniors. Between the last meeting and this one, we've actually managed to increase the parking supply to 353 spaces, which actually gives us even more in excess of what's going to be needed by this school. So while there are ITE numbers, I don't think they're directly relevant to the operation and the demand that's going to be generated by this specific use. And I think that based upon their projections, we'll have more than sufficient parking to support the demand of the site.
Based upon IETE projections?
No, based upon the staffing and visitor and student and operation of the current yeshiva.
All right, so when you say based upon their projections, you're saying based upon the applicant's projections?
Based upon, yes, based upon the analysis done with the growth projected for the school.
And based upon the empirical historic evidence that you've had since 1996.
That's correct. You know, and I think maybe it's relevant to go back and to the finding of the 1996 resolution, where it says the ordinance requirement would be, and I quote, "The parking requirements per the ordinance would be grossly excessive," end quote, for the school at that point when the one space per 669 was approved as an appropriate ratio for the school.
And that's why the resolution was careful to always address parking for this site as a space per gross floor area. Well, that might not be the way to do it in every school. The board, over the almost 30 years of history that the Hillel has been here, found that that has worked for this particular unique school based on where the students are coming, how many are bused, that there are very limited number of people who can drive to the campus.
That is correct. And the other thing that I guess we briefly touched upon was the bike lanes. There is no proposed modification at this time to the curb line along Poplar Road. So there is no institution of the bike lanes through this area.
And lastly, what about the parking in the Copper Gables parking lot now that the school owns it? What do you attribute that to?
So it's my understanding that as the student population increased because of COVID, there was a necessity to bring on additional staff to support that student population. And that the parking that you're seeing now within the Copper Gables parking lot is that increase in staff.
And that increase in staff was taken into consideration when you did your projections for the adequacy of the parking we're proposing.
That is correct.
I'm sorry, Justin, can you go back to the bicycle lanes? What did you say? I just missed it completely.
So we have no proposal to stripe or include the bike lanes through here.
But Justin, to go a step back, I think you skipped a step in your testimony. In order to add the bike lane, is it your testimony that we need to widen the road?
There would most likely, I haven't fully in-depth read through the bicycle compatibility, but based on my projections, yes, you would need to add a width to the cartway of the roadway to incorporate that bike lane.
Henry, can I follow up on one thing because I had asked earlier?
Sure.
So you had indicated it's your understanding that the additional parking behind where I'd asked before, behind the Copper Gables building now, resulted from increased staffing. It's your understanding how? Did they tell you this?
Yes, based upon my conversations with the applicant.
The applicant, meaning the principals of the school, told you we have more staffing now, so we have to park them over here.
Yes.
That's what they've told you.
That's correct.
Okay. And I don't know if I asked you this last time, and if I did, I'm sorry to be redundant, but so I know we're not changing the ingress and egress out of the site at all, right?
Well, all the traffic will still be utilizing the existing access point.
Exactly. Except for the fact that we're going to add an exit for the firehouse, which obviously is underutilized. I mean, we understand that's emergency situation.
And the restriping, Mr. Van Wagner.
All right.
Sorry.
There's going to be a dedicated dedicated
yes,
left.
I know that. So there'll be two areas then if we move it over, right? So, corner to corner.
No. I'm talking about for the school. You said there was no change to the ingress and egress. And when we're not changing the geometry of it, there was testimony and a striping plan to show that if Poplar Pace, let me pull it up if you don't mind.
Yeah,
no, it's all right, Jen. Let me keep going to let you.
Okay.
Because I know you're doing a bunch of stuff, and let me, because I'm trying to. This is a few questions. I mean, I really, what I want to get to is, you're not alleviating in any way the traffic issues we have on Poplar and Deal, which are significant if you live around it, especially from 3:30 to about 5:30, and especially with busing, and especially with the school there, and just the way Deal runs east to west. I mean,
Can he answer that question, Mr. Van Eyden? Because I think he testified to the contrary to that.
well, I'm not sure, so I forgot so I'm asking anew, so I'm sorry about that. But
Okay, no, that's fine. It was just, you made it as a statement, and I think
I kind of did. I meant it as a question.
right, that's contrary to what he testified to. So
Yeah,
Justin, do you want
I
to?
didn't mean to I didn't mean to characterize his testimony. I meant as a question. Can you please explain that a bit better? Sorry, Jen.
Absolutely, absolutely. What we have looked at is the improvement and the restriping of Poplar Road southbound. One of the issues that's created along Poplar Road, both from all the motoring public, not simply because of the school, but because of all the traffic along Deal and along Poplar, is we're looking to restripe the left turn and lengthen the southbound left turn lane on Poplar. What this will do is allow the left turning vehicles to fully stack within their lane. Currently, they extend beyond the length of the left turn lane, spill over into the through lane, and prevent vehicles from going through or heading west on Deal Road. So
great, I understand that, and because I live it. So what I'm saying is, you're going to the DOT is allowed, like, so you're just going to do it.
This is something that will have to be applied to the county because it's under county jurisdiction, not NJDOT jurisdiction. But I have full confidence that the county will allow us to do that. We'll be meeting the width standards of a standard left turn lane. In concert with that, we're also looking to modify the signal timing at the intersection to optimize it for all the motoring public through the intersection. So I really think
which is another DOT request that you don't have control over.
It's a Monmouth County application.
Well, actually, the signal change is DOT, not Monmouth County, right?
I disagree with that.
Okay, and I would defer to you because you're the expert. So okay, but then also, like, so you're saying about, well, let's go back to the first statement in terms of the restriping and the left in to the school. Now that you're proposing to move the firehouse over there too, so I mean, they have to have that access out, even just in the intermittent emergency periods like that. How does that calculate into your thoughts that DOT is going to, or Monmouth County is going to easily grant you that restriping?
I don't see any concern with the operation of the fire signal and its proximity to the signal. The drive.
That's not what I asked. I'm asking you whether or not you said that you have no concern that the restriping and sort of lengthening of the left-hand turn lane will be a problem with the county. But then again, you have another access point, another curb cut now for the firehouse before what you have existing now, right? You're pulling the firehouse up, you're making all the, now you have two curb cuts. So tell me how that's going to not affect your striping.
So what we're talking about here is a firehouse driveway, not a continuously used, not a commercial development. It's used in the times of an emergency. Right. And so at that point, similar to how they do now, they will be exiting the site with their lights on, with the motoring public required to stop and allow them into the roadway to arrive and go to their.
Exactly, but in a roadway that you already know is congested with a left-hand turn, so they're queuing up, and you're telling me now that it's going to be an easy Monmouth County approval that access point to the left-hand turn or the right-hand or left-hand access for the firehouse out of that side is not going to be affected by the fact that the queuing which exists now is going to be not exacerbated by the increased capacity of the school.
So there's actually two or three statements and questions within that. The last one, we're talking about the increase of the school. Now, what we have to keep in mind here is while we're increasing students, a vast majority of those students are going to be bused. So while we're talking about the increase, we're talking about buses that carry 30 to 50 kids at a time. So the amount of traffic that's being added to this during those peak hours is relatively minor. In the PM, in that afternoon that you're talking about, we anticipate approximately a new, give me 1 second to pull the exact figure up.
By the way, while you're doing that, are you sure you haven't counted the cars in addition to buses that come in and out of there at those same times on drop off and pickup?
Absolutely. In the last hearing, I thought I explicitly testified I can touch base.
And I'm sorry because I didn't recall, so I'm just asking again, sorry.
Justin, this is Jim Higgins. Can I just ask you, have you taken into account the fact that there are going to be 50 students now driving into and out of the site in their individual cars that don't do that now?
Yes, that was
a minor
taken.
increase in traffic. That's 50 cars during that peak period going in and going out. Seems to me to be a substantial increase in traffic.
Well, so what we found, interestingly, is the operation of this intersection, the peak time where we see the most queues is actually in the afternoon, not the release at the high school when those high school students would be leaving, but actually the release of the middle school in the late afternoon.
So Jason, just to clarify, because it seems like a lot of what you testified to is not being recalled. The dismissal is not all done in one shot. It's actually staggered dismissal over a 3-hour period of time, depending on the grade and the class.
That is correct.
So that's what you're referencing. So it ranged from about 2:30 to 5:30 is the dismissal time.
And Jennifer, and this is, again, I'm sorry, a statement, but part of my questions, I agree. I mean, it's not just here, but it's what it is. It's the middle school. It's the ingress and egress with the site you're talking about, and it's regular traffic because Deal and West Park are the only thoroughfares that cut us from east to west, besides 66 and 35.
Mr. Van Wagner, no, that's all understood. But again, we're not saying we're going to improve the conditions as they are today. What we're saying is we are mitigating the impact of the increase.
Yeah, but see, you know what? So or exacerbating it. So
it's not going to It's not going to be better necessarily, but we're accommodating the increase. Was the testimony that was given by Justin, and it was explained at the last meeting, and that does include the 50 students that would be driving that are not currently driving. Is that correct, Justin?
Yes, that's correct.
Ms. Krimko, I have a question for you. What would happen if you don't get the approval from the county?
If your approval is conditioned on getting approval from the county based on the representations, we would have to come back to this board.
Why not get the
Well,
approval?
even
from
if
the
it
county?
wasn't conditioned, but if it wasn't conditioned, you'd have, I mean, what do you do?
We wouldn't be able to go forward. Without the county approval, we don't go forward.
Why not get an indication from the county now?
I believe that Justin, well, first of all, Justin, as a traffic engineer and works with the county, in this county and counties of the state, it has a level of engineering certainty that they're going to accept it based on his experience. But as you heard, our plans keep changing. So I'm not sure that going and getting a county approval now is the appropriate time. Justin, have you run this type of change to accommodate the increase by the county in the past?
I have gotten approvals from the county to lengthen left turn lanes, to extend left turn lanes, to do signal timing modifications as part of development-driven improvements. Yes.
So that's what you base your confidence level on as to.
Without belaboring the point, I understand that Mr. Taylor has gotten approvals before Ms. Krimko, but I think that before anything goes forward, Mr. Fitzgerald is right. You should go to the county first, I think.
Well, not for approval, I would offer, because it might change, but certainly I understand that you're asking us to get a conceptual acceptance of this from the county. I understand that's the statement.
But I don't understand what would change. There's a left and a right-hand turn onto Poplar, and there's a right-hand turn going toward Deal Road. that I think that's what you want to extend.
Oh, no,
What-
agreed. Agreed. I'm not saying that the changes are going to occur with regard to the roadway improvements, the striping. What I'm saying is our project has been changing as we go along, but certainly as it implicates the county. Justin, is that something that we can take care of?
Yes, absolutely. We can approach the county and then set up a pre-application meeting with them.
But I just,
Or
like,
just-
again, my question, Jen, was more, and again, I'm sorry if I'm not trying to like accentuate a point. I'm just trying to remember because, we're not talking about an alleviation of the traffic that goes in and out of that site right now, right? We're not pushing the exit up onto Deal Road where it's gated off now. We're talking about the same ingress and egress off Poplar, and
Yes.
and it's
That
not
was
in your expert's testimony. I would ask you is to suggest that it's a minimal impact on what's already a bad situation. I don't think you'll characterize it that way. I'm just saying you're saying. I mean, his testimony is it's not
Well,
going
let's ask him. I think you're
Well,
asking a question.
I
so-
did ask him, and I didn't get the answer. I got you. All right, go ahead.
This is the first time I understood the question the way
Okay.
that you had just asked it.
I'm
So
sorry.
Justin,
Yes,
could you answer that question, please?
I will try. And if I don't, please ask it again if I'm missing the point.
No worries.
So we are improving the operation of our site driveway, the prior Poplar Place, by providing separate left and right turn lanes to come out of the site. That will help facilitate the movements from the site. Okay. What we are doing on Poplar Road at the intersection of Deal Road and Poplar is lengthening that left turn lane to fix and mitigate an existing problem that is not based upon the school, is based upon the existing traffic flow and will benefit not only the school, but everyone motoring along Poplar, because it'll allow the vehicles that are using Poplar to access 18 South or points west on Deal Road to bypass those left turns, not just when the school is letting out, but all through the day, 24 hours a day. Because of this extension of the left turn lane, the operation of Poplar Road will be better than it is today.
So please explain to me how you're going to mitigate or alleviate problems going towards 18 South. How does that work? So you make a right out of the existing driveway and you head to Deal. How does any of, like, because you're talking about a middle lane really to extend that left turn, which I don't know how you're going to get approved when you put the mouth of the newly located firehouse there, that curb cut. But you're telling me, like, let's forget that. You're going to make a right out of the existing facility, make a right onto Poplar, and then head to 18 South. How is that mitigated? That's widening?
No, because currently what happens is the left turns heading southbound on Poplar spill out of the left turn lane and block the ability for vehicles to get past to get to the signal to make the right on the Deal Road.
I think you're mistaken it. So I don't understand that. So the current ingress and egress from the property is the same place.
That's correct.
All right, you make the right out of Poplar Place onto Poplar Road to go to 18.
That's correct.
How does that, what are you proposing that mitigates the traffic coming out of there to make it easier to get onto 18 South?
The cues observed and the cues calculated back from the signal for the left turn lane extend.
Can I, Justin, let me call up the plan because I
There's
think.
an idea.
I think we're on different pages.
No, I think that, let me just, if you don't mind, Justin, let me ask you the question this way, okay? Can everyone see the screen?
Not yet.
No.
Yes?
No. Not yet.
Yes.
Okay. So Justin, right now, if the left turn lane ends about here, so if the queue is longer than this, it backs all the way up to here. So if someone wanted to go right out of our site and then make a right onto Deal, they'd be stuck behind all the cars waiting to make the left turn. Is that correct?
That's not, that's, I live.
I'm
here. That's
asking
not an-
Justin the question.
I understand, but it's not a right.
That's correct. The current left turn lane is 185 feet. We're proposing to lengthen it to 370 feet.
Okay, so again, let me finish asking the question.
I'm sorry, Jen.
So what you're saying is now, if I wanted to make a right onto Deal Road to head west, I would conceivably, if the left turn queue went past where the left turn lane is, then I would end up being in line waiting for that left turn queue to lower so I can sneak past it and make the right turn. Is that your testimony, Justin?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
So can I ask then, Jen?
If I could just
Right.
finish, because you said he was wrong and I'm trying to explain.
No, you're right. I'm sorry.
So if that's the case, and now you have the queue that goes all the way up to where our proposed tennis courts are, is it your testimony that based on the signal length at Deal Road, which we're going to make some adjustments to, if I remember correctly, that the queue that is trying to make a left turn to head Deal Road east will typically not exceed the 300-foot queue length, which will give this right lane to remain open for a right turn?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and by doing this, by lengthening the double lane, which gives the length of the queue to go left, by giving them a dedicated area for a longer area of time, that then opens up the right turn lane to help facilitate the traffic that's trying to go from Poplar Road south onto Deal Road west to get to Route 18.
Yes, that's correct.
So, Jen, I think I get it now, and I'm sorry. So you're talking, so I'm looking at it from coming north on Poplar, where I have to get around people who are making lefts in. So you're talking about when I come down, the way it queues up behind, of course, even without school traffic, even if there's 4 cars, it pops, you have to wait to yield
Correct.
onto Deal Road. My point is, you really are, your testimony is that what you're doing is to alleviate congestion there by the left-hand turn lane going into your property is going to help out.
No,
that he never testified to that, Mr. Van
Okay,
Wagner.
that's what I'm trying to get to. I don't understand it.
That was
No, I
never stated.
apologize, Mr. Van Wagner. I think we were just missing in the night.
That's what I'm saying. We were on different pages. I want to get your testimony.
Yes. So I also thank Ms. Krimko for, clearing it up for us and bringing this up.
So I'm trying to say, so you're telling me that somehow what you're doing with restriping what will be your left-hand turn lane going into the property off of Poplar going north.
There's no striping that has anything to do with the only, so let me pull it up again. The only striping that's being proposed, the testimony was the striping on the egress. So there's going to be a left turn lane out and
Not on Poplar Road, on Poplar Place.
yes.
Okay, see, that's where
On our
I thought you were
driveway.
saying on Poplar Road, you're going to do something here that's
No.
going to alleviate.
Absolutely not.
So what your testimony is that you're not going to alleviate any traffic coming onto Poplar Road and Deal.
No, the testimony was it will alleviate the backup on Poplar Road South.
Poplar Road, not Place, south.
Yeah.
How is it going to alleviate that? Because you're going to make the right, you're just going to queue up on the right turn and wait for that yield sign, and you're not doing it. It's the dynamic of our Deal Road and Poplar Road intersection there. I mean,
But I don't know
how
how
is
else-
what you're restriping going north on Poplar Road, if that's not what you're doing?
No, that's not what we're talking about.
Okay, you're talking about Poplar Place inside your,
No, let me show you again, Mr. Van Wagner.
all right.
What we're talking about is Poplar Road South. So the movement to the south to access Deal Road is going to be alleviated. This one movement is going to be alleviated. There was no testimony that we were improving an existing condition on Deal Road heading north on Poplar. And there was no testimony with regard to any improvements on Deal Road at all. The
Actually,
testimony,
your expert just testified or said that 18 South access would be
No.
alleviated by this. That's not
again,
18 South.
that's not what he
18 North.
said. He said that the 18 West, the people traveling on Poplar Road South, looking to head west on Deal Road to the 18 South entrance ramp, it's this, Justin, it's this movement that's improving, correct?
How is that improvement? How is that an improvement? I don't get it still. I mean, that you're coming out, you're making a right onto Poplar Road at a Poplar Place. So what about are you widening the road?
No, we're creating a dedicated left turn lane for the additional 300 feet. So you're no longer waiting behind a queue of people making a left turn onto Deal Road.
I'm still not getting you because I'm talking about the opposite turn. I'm talking about a right out of your facility towards
Deal Road.
A South Poplar and then right on Deal to go to 18 South. Because 18
Right.
North is off of West Park Ave.
Correct. We're doing nothing to Deal Road to improve traffic that's already on Deal Road.
That's my point.
But that wasn't what his testimony was. He was talking about facilitating the turn from Poplar to get to.
Yeah, I guess I was confused. I'm going to stop because I think other board members have questions.
Okay, Mr. Malta.
Can I take a shot at that? Because I think I understand exactly what the witness is saying.
I'm glad you do.
I'll just look at it another way. Right now, I don't know what the real number is, but let's say, for example, you can fit in the left turn lane 4 cars going left. If more than 4 cars want to take that left-hand turn, they're going to stack up in the now there's only 1 lane. And anybody that wants to go either left or right is going to have to wait behind them until the first 4 left turn cars can clear it. Now, with the proposal, they're increasing that left turn lane by a certain percentage. Now you're going to fit 8 cars in there.
Well, Justin, how many?
So it's,
Yeah, maybe that'll help if you explain that.
and Mr. Malta, thank you very much. That was much more eloquent than I have done. We are projecting, give me 1 second. So it's 370 feet proposed. 370. About 15 cars,
And what's the stack currently?
185, which is about 7 cars.
So we're more than doubling the stack, which is going to allow the right turn or the southbound to westbound to move without waiting behind those left turns.
That is correct.
How wide are your lanes, Justin?
1 second, Bill. We have a 12-foot left turn lane and a 14-foot curb lane.
12-foot left and 14-foot right turn lane?
Curb, yep.
How about on the east side? You gotta
14.
be moving. You're not moving the center line?
We are moving the center line. It's
20 feet now?
No, what we're actually doing now, you're right. We're holding the center line before it tapers back up by the Hillel driveway. But it's 14 feet down by the intersection. We're just maintaining that through a little further before we taper back. So it's a 14 foot.
Is there enough space between the islands? You have two channelizing islands on the turns there. You got the island from westbound Deal Road when you make the right onto Poplar Road North, and you have enough room between the islands, or are they being changed?
No, we're not touching anything at that part of the intersection because the left turn lane currently extends beyond both of those channelizing islands.
So then an application to the county is a pretty simple matter.
That's correct. We're essentially restriping the road and asking for minor signal timing modifications outside of the influence of Deal Road.
So my advice would be, or my suggestion would be, why not make it, get some input?
We will do that.
Okay.
A question I have, or the concern I still have, well, I have a couple. I don't remember the email that was going to tell me why the random arrivals on westbound Deal Road at Poplar Road is more conservative than the platoon analysis.
Absolutely. And I apologize. I thought I'd sent this to you after the TRC meeting. There are actually several references in the highway capacity manual to the creation of gaps and how they are and how the traffic flow utilizes them. One of the quotes is essentially that when traffic signals are present on major street upstream of the subject intersection, flows may not be random, but will likely have some platoon structure. Okay.
That's my concern, exactly.
Right. And traffic signals create platoons of vehicles that travel along the facility as a group with significant gaps between one platoon and the next. And the third reference that we would look to is says the driver on the main street or the driver turning left from the major street at a two-way stop controlled intersection faces a specific task, selecting a gap in traffic through which to execute the desired movement. The distribution of gaps in major street traffic stream depends on the volume of the street, its direction of distribution, the number of lanes on the major street, and the degree and type of platooning in the traffic stream.
All right, so maybe we need to have a little more technical review meeting and kind of get this on paper and clear for all these people that are taking their time to sit and listen to all this.
Absolutely.
Having said that, I want to be sure that were the build condition traffic projections for the deal in 35 commercial and residential development taken into account and added into these numbers?
They were not.
Did you look at the intersection improvements that are proposed at westbound deal in 35?
We did not take that into account, given the level of traffic that's projected through that intersection.
And the reason I'm asking is because it's very likely that that development will be built. And if it is, then there will be 3 westbound lanes at deal and 35. There will be a dedicated left turn, a dedicated right turn, and a dedicated through. And so there's no question that there's going to be platooning. And that intersection is pretty busy and the platoons are going to be substantial. And I can tell you now, heading west on Deal Road, that when there's a queue at the traffic light at Poplar, if you don't know the area and you're proceeding at speed limit and you hit that bend just west of the convenience store and across the street from the apartments, you can tailgate someone, you can tail end someone pretty easily because that queue backs back there. So I just want to make sure all this is built into the analysis that everybody's listening to, so they're either comfortable or not. The other concern that I have is, again, that queue length on Poplar Road, I see it as potentially impacting the driver's sight distance of vehicles wanting to make a left out of Poplar Place onto Poplar Road. So I think we need to address that specifically.
Absolutely.
A diagram or whatever. The diagram is the answer.
That's fine. I believe I provided testimony, but obviously we're, I can provide that to you.
Good. A picture's worth 1,000 words. I mean, it's just easier to have it out there for everyone to see and discuss than to discuss it, in a vacuum. But I wanted to get the points out there because it's been going a while.
Yep.
Any other questions from the board for Mr. Taylor? Okay, seeing that there's no other questions from the board, are there any questions from the public for Mr. Taylor? Ms. Lambert, please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Please state your name and address.
Marissa Lambert, 3 Kenneth Drive, Ocean Township.
You've already been sworn. What is your question?
Will you have a no block the intersection sign at Poplar Place?
It's not currently proposed, but I don't think it's something we could do.
Yeah. And also, will you have neutral police, like traffic police, to ensure, like a non-school person, to ensure that all directions get fair access during those times? Because do you know the times of our schools, the public schools versus their schools, and how will you account for that traffic coming onto the roads with the Ocean Township buses and the Ocean Township parents on the roads at the same time?
So I think the Ocean Township parents are on the same time. They're within the traffic counts that I've already done and analyzed. We do not.
Traffic study.
Excuse me?
It wasn't me. Someone else must be talking.
Sorry, then I apologize. But to the effect of, do we need a traffic director there? There's no proposed traffic director at the intersection of our site driveway and Poplar Road.
What about a school sign that says that there are schools here, and then won't we have to lower the speed for Poplar and Deal?
There's no intention to lower the speed on Poplar Road.
Well, it's 40 miles an hour, and usually in a school zone, it's 20. Oh, sorry, let me pose this in a question. Do you know what it usually is in a school zone, the speed limit?
So in this area, it's 40 miles an hour. I mean, that's the proposed, that's the existing speed limit, and that's the proposed speed limit.
You're a traffic safety person. Would this make it dangerous for students in the area and our children in the area who ride bikes and walk to school themselves?
I don't think the change of speed limit in the vicinity of this driveway would have any bearing on the safety of people on Poplar Road up further north of this. No, I don't.
But this is just your thought, not, you haven't studied it.
Well, it's my professional opinion that any change of speed limit, even in the vicinity of Poplar, of the site driveway, which was Poplar Place, won't have any impact up by, say, your street where you live, because there would be no change of speed up there. If you have concerns with the speed of the roadway, it's something that you could bring to the township.
Yes, but when you expand it, so the question is, when you expand a school, shouldn't you into other grades and bigger and make it larger? Shouldn't this be something that you take into account, though?
There is no expansion of the grades that are being provided at this facility. All the grades currently exist.
Oh, sorry, I meant the number of students. That's what I meant. The number of students and the safety of the students.
Based on the analysis that we've conducted, the driveway will operate safely and efficiently.
Is the new traffic plan going to inhibit the development of the township pedestrian bike plan, the township bike plan and pedestrian plan? And also, would you like me to share that plan with you if you haven't seen it?
I have seen it. I haven't reviewed it in depth, so I can't really answer that question.
Would you like me to share a little bit with you of where it's proposed?
Ms. Lambert, I don't think, just 1 second. Mr. Fitzgerald, maybe you can shed some light on this, or Mr. Higgins. The Greenway bike lanes, if they're not there, that is not up to the applicant to put those bike lanes in, correct? Mr. Fitzgerald, you have to unmute yourself.
Higgins too.
Higgins too.
I was involved with the bike plan at the beginning, but I haven't really been involved with it for some time. So maybe it's fair to just let me take a look at it between now and the next hearing and get a sense of what the current thinking is and how it's going to get developed. I only was involved at the very early stages of it.
Okay.
And I'm in the same position as Bill. Obviously, if it calls for a bike lane and the applicant proposes to put it in, I think it would strengthen his application.
Yeah, I think what the problem is, Jim, with any bike lane there is that you have to take, I think you have a 40-foot pavement there. And I think that from curb to curb on Poplar Road, and think that's why I asked about what the lane widths were going to be for the proposed restriping. And if you try to take away a narrow bike lane on each side of 3 feet, now you're down to 34 feet and you're trying to get lanes in and you can't really get the lanes that meet in. So it becomes problematic. But I'm thinking out loud, and I would really rather have the option of looking at the question and coming back with a more intelligent answer.
Yes.
Would you like me to share that with you, or will you guys find that independently?
Oh, I can find it with no problem. I'm in town hall quite a bit, so I will make it a point to get it soon and be thoroughly prepared as I can be for next hearing.
I think our final question had to do with with the sidewalks and the continuous sidewalk that had been discussed at the last meeting. And it was some of our, the local residents understanding that the school was going to make a continuous sidewalk and attach it to the sidewalk that already is there for safety of children in the neighborhood and the children who park on our street and cross now and go across the street to school.
So I can't speak to the people that park on your street. I'm not aware of that. I can tell you that the sidewalk is not feasible to the north of the site, given the bridge that's there, the guide rail that's there, and the slopes that are present on the western side of Poplar Road.
And finally, with the added traffic, were you proposing to have a crosswalk across Deal and across Poplar at the intersection and the added driveways?
There's not currently proposed a crosswalk across Poplar Road.
Do you feel that would keep the community safer to have those?
I would prefer people to cross at actual intersections. So
That's what I mean at the light, at the intersection, where you propose to put the firehouse.
So Mark, I was gonna suggest, I don't know if that's like really fair for the expert. I think those yeah, he can't really do that, but I agree with you. I've seen it, but I don't know that he can actually solve that.
This is new to us, who to ask.
Yeah, no, understood. Yeah, for sure.
But thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Chairman, could I jump in? I'm sorry, I had a question and I missed my shot a couple seconds ago.
Who is this?
It's John Fuller.
Oh, yeah, John, go ahead.
First, a note for Jim and Bill. I got to think for a bike lane, if they were able to fit it in on Logan Road, Poplar's got to be wide enough to be able to do it. And also, when you put a bike lane in, right, you put 2 bike lanes in on each side, right? You're kind of narrowing the lane, effectively narrowing the road. You bring down the 85th percentile, hopefully, which God, I don't think 85% of the cars are driving 40 miles an hour on that road. But, you know, that might also be able to get us to, you know, get her to a safer speed limit over there. I would say the same thing for Deal, but that's not really what we're talking about right now.
John, I think the issue is not if it's 40 feet from curb to curb or close to that, even if it's 36 feet from curb to curb, you can get the bike lanes in on both sides. It's when from Poplar Place to Deal Road southwise, and that where they're going to do the restriping.
Yep.
Your bike lanes are going to terminate like abruptly.
Yep.
Kind of like down on the beachfront in Long Branch when you're riding on a 10-foot wide shoulder and you're just cruising along, and all of a sudden you're down to about 6 inches with mud on your right. And if you hit the mud, you're going to bounce right back into the traffic. It's that kind of a situation.
Yeah. So it's kind of a bigger question for the town, right? Which brings me to my question for Mr. Taylor. Mr. Taylor, the proposed improvements you're talking about, the striping on Poplar Place, and then the lengthening of the left turn signal or left turn lane. Is that something you would argue would benefit the town today? That's something that should be done now for the existing conditions?
Yes, I think it is something that would alleviate existing deficiencies that are out there currently. It's a problem that exists today that could be fixed. And as part of this application, we were proposing to fix it to benefit not just us, but all the motoring public.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from? Yes, Jackie, please unmute yourself.
Okay,
Please state your name and address for the record.
again, I already did.
I know that, but you're asking another question now.
Oh, I didn't hear you request that of someone else who asked another question, but it's okay. Jackie Wenzel Yunkunt, 610 Deal Road.
Okay, and your question is?
Yes. Well, Mr. Fitzgerald brought up a concern that, I wanted to ask about, which is the traffic consideration on the DL 35 project. So what I wanted to know, Mr. Taylor, is it possible to do a traffic simulation, including the data of the DOT report for the 35 and DL proposed project? Because as I understand, that DOT played with the, they had to play with the timing on the traffic lights at Allaire and West Park to just kind of make it in terms of what would be regulation to.
Jackie,
I'm just setting up my question.
Excuse me.
I'm setting up my question. I'm setting up my question.
You're testifying. You're testifying. You asked him if he can do a study.
I'm trying to. Okay, I got it. Stop. I got it. Mark, I got it.
Just ask him.
Please, Jackie, don't tell Mark or our professionals to stop.
You're being
If you have a question, ask a question.
I am. I was just setting up my question because Mr. Taylor is
By
maybe
testifying.
he's not aware of the other traffic report, which is what he.
And again, I have to put an objection on the record. She's stating facts that are not in evidence. She's characterizing a traffic report that's not in evidence. I'd ask her to ask the expert a question.
Yeah, well, I think our chairman.
First question.
Had mentioned the
First
traffic
question,
study.
Jackie
I thought
would
it
be,
was okay.
Jackie,
Yes.
you want to ask Mr. Taylor if he's aware and he's reviewed that study.
Are you aware, Mr. Taylor? I thought Mr. Fitzgerald already asked that and he said he wasn't aware of it. Was that correct?
No, that's not correct. I am aware of this study.
Okay.
I have not reviewed it thoroughly, but I'm aware of the study and the project in that area.
So have you considered the activity there in the numbers when you're looking at the traffic at Poplar now and Deal?
No, we did not take that into account.
Do you believe we should?
I believe the relative impact proposed of the project will be substantially similar to what we found here. What that does, the traffic associated with the 32-acre site on the corner of Deal becomes background traffic in this. It's not
increased from what it is today.
It does, but what it does is it raises the baseline that we need to compare our traffic to. And so when we look at that, we look no build, we look build, and then we look to mitigate our specific impacted intersection. And it's my opinion that the relative impact, even including that traffic at this intersection, will be the same of our project, and that our improvements will continue to mitigate our impact at this intersection.
My professional opinion is that you include that in your report. I agree with you, and you may be there, but I don't see why that can't be a definitive, because I'm telling you from my experience that I think it's very likely to be built.
Yes, and that's fine.
Also, my personal opinion is if it is built, I think it's going to be very successful in terms of people going there and the traffic that's investigated in their study is realistic.
Understood.
Okay.
That's not a problem.
All right.
So can you do it in a traffic simulation so the residents can really have a visual and understand what's going to be happening? Because it is a big concern of safety and traffic in our community there. Number one concern.
We will include, as Mr. Fitzgerald.
No. She's asking if you'll do a video simulation to review, and the answer is no.
Why is it no?
You don't have to ask why. Don't have to ask us why it's no, because the applicant is paying their expert. If they don't want to pay for that, they don't have to.
But if they want it approved.
If you would like, I don't know where we're going with approvals. If you feel it's that pertinent, it's going to be negative, you can hire somebody to do so.
Hey, Mark,
We pay taxes for you to
I don't
do.
think, Jackie, I don't think that we need to try to make them over expend their thing. I mean, I'm satisfied
if I
with.
may, the applicant is going to revise their traffic report to take into consideration the anticipated traffic from Deal 35 as recommended by the board's professional. to ask if we're going to create, and the question was, will you create the video for a visual representation? And the answer is no.
And
That's
why is that, Jennifer?
Mr. Chair, could you advise that, well, I can
I
make
don't need it,
stipulations?
Henry, so that's all.
She doesn't have to answer that. They don't want to produce it, they don't want to produce it. If
They
it's
don't want to
something
produce,
crucial
that's all.
to get it, if it's something crucial to get approval, it's the applicant's decision to offer it or not offer it.
Well, I know, but it would show you.
I
Well, it
understand
would help you,
what
I
you're
think.
asking. Jackie, I understand what you're asking. They don't want to provide it. Maybe that'll be a reason that the board will not consider this appropriate. I don't know. They don't want to provide it. You cannot make them. We cannot make them.
Okay, and I just have one other question. I am aware that the township is updating our master plan today, and it was told to me that the bicycle and pedestrian safety plan,
You're testifying, Jackie, you're testifying. These are facts that are not in evidence. What was told to you is called hearsay. So I don't know what your question is.
Well, because you keep cutting me off.
We don't know if that's all true.
All right, one
But
second.
All right, you're giving.
Let me pose it as a question. The bicycle and pedestrian plan is going to be integrated into our updated master plan, which we as a community.
You don't, Jackie, you don't know.
Stop interrupting.
Jackie, why don't you? But you're putting facts and evidence with no foundation. Okay.
No, that's true. On June 30th.
You're saying it's true.
No, our township website. Our township website states June 30th. We are going to have public.
Stop. You cannot tell us what's going on, okay? You're not the expert.
I'm not. I'm just reporting what's
And
on
as a
our
board
township
member, as a board member,
website.
it really doesn't help me.
It's on our
And
website.
also, I don't think you're really impacting us at all. So that's my point.
Well,
Okay,
it's
wait a
on
minute.
Ocean
Wait,
Township's website and bicycle and pedestrian plan came up during this meeting tonight. So why am I off base by asking?
Because you're not asking.
What is your question,
You're not asking a
Jack?
question.
Right,
Please
there you
ask.
go.
Would Mr. Taylor be looking at the master plan when it's updated with the bicycle and pedestrian plan before this application is approved?
Ask that, Mr. Taylor.
I just did.
I would assume that would depend on the timing of this application and that document, which is not approved.
So wouldn't it make sense to wait until our updated master plan is settled before we push through on this application?
Okay. No, excuse me, Jen, everyone, please. The master plan, A, has nothing to do with this application. The master plan will not be completed until December. So the master plan that is in place today is what this application is based upon and nothing else. Anything that comes into January of next year will have the new master plan as part of it. But this application has absolutely nothing to do with a document that is presently being prepared. It goes to the master plan that is in effect today.
Mr. Kirk, can I ask you a question?
I don't know if you'll like the answer, but go ahead.
No, Mr. Chair, I have to object.
There's a rush to put this through
Mr.
before
Chair,
the master plan is
All right, wait.
updated. There's a rush to put it through.
Jackie, now you're out of order. Okay?
You're out of order.
You're out of order.
Sorry.
The applicant can do what the applicant wants to do. If they want to pursue it before the master plan or before a change in the master plan, that's the applicant's right. The board has to act within a certain period of time statutorily. And certainly it's not going to go until December.
Mr. Chair, may I place my objection on the record formally, please?
Sure.
The objection is that this is now questions and answers from the applicant's professional who has testified. There is no form under the municipal land use law in which an objector or a member of the public has the right to ask questions of the town's professionals unless the chair entertains that. If a member of the public would like to offer testimony or offer exhibits at the public portion when our presentation is done, then certainly Ms. Wentz Youngkist has the ability to do so. However, it's not appropriate for her to be offering testimony or attempting to introduce evidence At this point, it's a question and answer of my witnesses.
Understand that.
Yeah, Henry, and I would
Yes.
advise you legally to affirm that objection. And Ms. Wenzel, you must just ask questions of Mr. Taylor as to what his testimony was tonight.
I do affirm the objection from Ms. Krimko.
So you're actually sustaining it, correct? I apologize. I used the wrong terminology.
Okay. Ms. Wenzel, do you have any other questions for Mr. Taylor?
I guess not. Not now, not at this time.
Okay. Are there any other questions from anyone from the public?
Hello?
Hello?
Hi, I do have a question and I hope,
Excuse me, raise your right hand.
oh,
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Miriam Solons, 4 Kenneth Drive.
Your question is?
Question is, where can I find a visual rendering of the proposal of extending the turn on Poplar Road?
Right here.
Ms. Krimko, can you put that up, please?
It's already up.
There you go.
But there is going to be a new proposal, or from what I've gathered from this meeting.
No, this is not changing, Ms. Solons. This is the proposal for the restriping.
For the restriping. Okay, where can I find this?
It's on the screen and it's on file at the township. And if you
On
drop
file.
me-
Okay,
And wait, I'm sorry. And I was going to say, if you drop me an email, I'm happy to email you a PDF.
that would be great. What's your email?
You're going to have to look it up if you got the notice.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'll find it. Okay, and I have another question, is what about people who cross the street from north to south on the east side of Poplar? So when you're walking, and you want to go from the north side of Poplar to the south side of Poplar, and you're crossing Deal Road, are there any proposals as to the safety in this process?
You're talking, and just so I can understand, you're not talking about on our frontage, you're talking about crossing Deal Road from.
Crossing Deal Road, so I'm not sure, I guess this should go to, yeah. Mhm.
Okay, yeah. So Justin, are we proposing any changes to that intersection other than what you testified to?
We are not, no.
Okay.
Justin, Mark Steinberg, our attorney, are there crosswalks there now?
There is an existing crosswalk that crosses along the eastern side from north to south, south to north, to cross Deal Road, yes.
Yeah, but it goes to what, a landing on that side, and then you must head west across again to get to.
Yes, it lands in the channelizing island on the north side of the Deal Road.
And from where does it go from there?
It traverses actually back to the east along Deal Road and crosses the channelized right from Deal Road west to Poplar Road north, and the sidewalk network that's along the eastern side of Poplar Road.
And no changes are proposed to that.
There are no changes proposed to that, no.
Even with more of the traffic? Okay.
The answer was there are no changes proposed.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we can't make them do anything that they're not doing at this point.
Yes, I know. All right.
Let's try.
Got it.
Any other questions from the public?
I do have a question. This is Margaret Boyce again.
Wait a minute. Let me take some other questions from people that haven't been heard yet.
Okay.
Mr. Marowitz, please raise your right hand. Right hand? Thank you. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
It's 14 Magnolia Court, Ocean, New Jersey. Simple question. In looking at the chart, Poplar is being extended to provide for that left-hand turn. There are 2 exits from the firehouse. Have we confirmed with the fire department, that there will be no emergency egress onto Poplar Road, and that all emergency egress from the firehouse will be onto Deal Road?
That's a question I think better answered by the traffic expert, but it's my understanding that they will be accessing from onto Deal Road.
Jennifer, please chime in, but I believe there was specific testimony on that last month.
By Mr. Flanagan. I know that that question was asked. I don't recall off the top of my head.
Okay.
My apologies, I wasn't here last month.
I believe he testified, and we can verify this from the record. I'm going to look at my notes too, but I believe he testified that any emergency egress would be onto Deal Road only.
Thank you.
I believe. But
I
think that the coming back into the firehouse would be from Poplar, so they could go through the back of not have to back in. They could, because it's going to now be a through drive into the firehouse. Does anybody else remember that? Guess not.
I don't.
Okay, well, if Mr. Maywitz has more questions, fine. I'm going to go through my notes from last week.
Mark, that's my recollection as well.
Yeah, but I have notes on it, so.
More questions?
Mr. Morowitz, do you have another question?
No.
Okay. Ms. Fleur, please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Please unmute yourself.
Got it. I do. Rosemary Fiore, 6 Oak Tree Lane, Ocean.
Okay, what is your question?
This is for Justin. You talked about people making a right turn onto Deal Road and a left turn onto Deal Road, but what about the cars that go straight? Looking at your schematic that Mrs. Krimko presented, it looks like it's the same as it is now, which means that if there's 2 cars there, then the rest of that right lane can't pass.
Yes, that's correct. The curb lane will continue to be for through, and then right turns channelized right at the intersection. However, the amount of volume that goes through as compared to what turns right is relatively minimal. So you are correct. If there is, a couple cars queued up in traveling through, they will then block that right turn lane, but they will still be able to bypass and queue up. They'll be able to bypass all of the left turning vehicles.
Thank you.
Ms. Stein, please, you asked a question before, didn't you?
No, I have not asked any questions.
Please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Please state your name and address.
Nanette Stein, Terrio, 8 David Street. Okay,
your
Mr. Taylor, did anyone request that the traffic impact study be done on May 30th, 2019?
I don't know if I understand the question.
You've said that this traffic study, the original traffic study, was done May 2019, but the actual date on the study says May 30th of 2019. Was that date requested?
I don't have a report that's dated May 30th. I'm not sure what you're referring to.
I looked at the dynamic traffic study, and it says on the first, I believe the first page, that the traffic study was done on May 30th, 2019.
Are you talking about the traffic counts or the traffic study?
The actual, well, the counts.
Okay.
On the traffic study.
Give me 1 second. Sorry, I'm looking at the date on the cover of the report. The traffic counts were conducted May 30th, 2019. That's correct.
Okay. Was that date requested by anyone?
No, it was a day that we determined would be typical of traffic patterns, both for the school and in the area.
Okay, were you aware that that was a Thursday after Memorial Day of 2019? Were you aware of that?
I don't have that. I don't have the calendar in front of me now.
Okay. Do you know if the school was in full session that day?
Yes, it's my understanding the school was in full session that day.
Okay. Could you explain how manually collected data for a traffic study is done? Did someone actually count the cars, or
Yeah.
was there a traffic strip?
So a manual traffic count is conducted manually. It's a physical counter or a camera out there individually counting the turning movements.
The turning movements into the school, into Poplar Place.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Was there any discussion of a left turn lane only into the school property from Poplar Road going north?
There was some discussion, and it was determined that the extension of the southbound left turn proposed as we have it provided a greater benefit to not only the school, but the general public. And so we determined to extend that left turn lane and make that improvement.
Okay, well, with that new striping, is that going to take up space in that straight lane going north on Poplar?
Yes.
Okay, so there will not be any, will there be any room for a car to maneuver around another car or a bus turning left into the school?
No.
Will that impede on the traffic going north on Poplar Road from Deal Road?
No differently than it occurs today.
Well, all right, today, has anyone looked at cars going around people turning left into the road?
We analyzed,
right.
We analyzed the operation of that driveway and the northbound left turn lane, and we project levels of service B or better for the northbound left turn movement into the site.
I think the question has to do with northbound on Poplar Road, and being now with the wider striping for the extended queues, someone making a northbound on Poplar Road left into this facility is going to now hold up a vehicle behind them, where in today's world, you can go around that car.
Illegally, but yes.
Maybe not legally, but you can
Yes.
go around them.
It is illegal to pass anyone on the right.
Yeah, I understand.
Observations on my part out there is there are some people that are making that illegal maneuver. There are also some people that don't. And so it does queue up behind the left turn. And we'll continue to do so with the proposal.
In your professional opinion, would a designated left turn lane onto Poplar Place going into the school aid in traffic efficiency? In your, not just in general, in your professional opinion?
So in my professional opinion, based on the levels of service that we see out here, no, it's not necessary.
I'm not saying if it's necessary, I'm saying if it's more efficient. Would it be more efficient
Based on
to
the
have a left turn lane?
I don't
into
think
the
it's
school?
required or necessary for this project.
Okay, you're not answering my question, but all right. Okay, was there a proposed parking plan for students and staff during construction? I was told to ask you that rather than, I can't remember the other gentleman's name.
Yes, Mr. So these plans will be developed.
Mr.
Right? The plans will be developed as part of an approval of this project, should it be approved, and it will need to be taken into account. They have a very robust parking drop-off system in place currently, and it's something that will need to be contemplated when we get to that level of where the existing demand will be accommodated.
So at this time, there is no plan as to how and where people are going to park, correct?
As part of a municipal approval such as this, it's not typical to do that level of detail. It's a construction issue and will be handled during the construction process.
So there is no plan. I'm just asking you if, I'm asking if there is a plan, yes or no?
There has not been one prepared.
Thank you. Okay, if you look at the traffic impact study on table 4 and 5, I don't know if the board wants me to discuss the numbers on it or first, because that's part of my question. And I don't want to be told that I'm testifying.
No, if
May
you're
I
reading,
explain?
if you're reading directly from the,
I'm reading.
yeah, then I have no
the
problem
traffic
with that.
study.
I have no problem with you asking a question by reading from the study he prepared. Of course not.
Okay.
No problem.
All right, thank you. Okay, in table 5 of the traffic study, proposed trip generation shows there will be 112 entering trips and 52 exiting trips during morning peak, 28 in, 62 out peak PM, and 16 in and 31 out evening peak. This equals 156 in and 145 out, which includes buses, private car drop-off, and staff. Please explain how this number is accurate when currently there's 185 staff and 145 or 245 proposed as per table 4.
Sure, no problem. This is really a function of the multiple arrival and dismissal times for the various grade levels of the school. So there are teachers and staff associated with each grade level. There are students, there is drop-off, and there's busing. And so based on the formulaic calculations that we did, and I can walk you through, let's see.
What page is that on in the traffic report?
1 second, Jen, I can tell you.
I believe it's page 6.
It's page 6.
Page 5 and page 6.
Table 4 and table 5.
Oh, I thought you said table 10. I'm sorry, I got confused.
No, 4 and 5.
Okay.
Don't even add up to 10.
So based on the various kids within the various grade levels, as well as the various staffing levels associated with each one, we calculated the ins and the outs. We assumed 5 to 10% students would be dropped off. Now they currently have between 5 and 10. We utilize 10 to calculate the most amount of passenger vehicles that would be coming in during that time. We also looked at when the staffing would be coming in for each of the various grade levels. Of the kids being dropped off, we then we removed them from the student population, and then we calculated the rest as bus trips, okay? And within each bus, we assumed 40 students. And so in the morning, peak hour, right? And so again, we look at peak hours. Now, not all the entering are coming in at the same time, although we did conservatively look at that. But in the morning, we would have 60 teachers coming in. We would have a total of 36 parent drop-offs coming in, and we would have 16 buses coming in. And that equates to the 112 new trips that would be associated with the project. Likewise, we did the same thing with the exiting, right? So in the morning, you don't have teachers leaving, they're all remaining. So you only have drop-off parents and you have buses exiting. Hence the difference between the entering and the exiting trips in that morning hour. And what we did, we applied that same methodology to the grade levels exiting during the afternoon peak hour and then the evening peak hour, and arrived at the trip distribution, trip generation that's shown in table 5. right? If you would go to table 6, the very next table, it breaks down when the various grade levels begin and end.
Okay, I guess you're not answering. If you look at the proposed staff, it's proposing 245 staff members. So you're saying that there aren't going to be 245 staff members each day?
No, what we're saying is there are currently, at the time of the counts that we did at this intersection, 185 staff members. So that would be an additional 60 staff members. And we assumed conservatively that every one of them is coming in during that morning peak hour. So there are 60 additional staff trips entering in the morning peak hour.
Okay, but in table 4, it says proposed, well, the 245 staff.
Correct. And
So you're saying that they're not all coming in.
In that same table, it says 185 existing staff. Do you see that?
Right, but it's saying proposed. And in your study,
so the total, we are not proposing
in table 5.
Excuse me. We are not proposing 245 new staff. We are proposing 245 total staff, or a net increase of 60. Okay.
Okay, but even, all right, with the 245 staff members in total, that's, if you add up the numbers in your proposed trip generation in table 5, it comes to 156.
Because
so how can there be
I apologize. Go ahead.
Okay, so if that is equaling 156, how can you propose that number when you're proposing 245 staff members?
We're not proposing 245 staff members. At the end of this, there will be 245 staff members. We are proposing an increase of 60 staff members. Now, what you need to remember, and I think, this may be where the confusion is coming up. We counted the traffic volumes associated with the existing school. At that point, there were 891 students and there were 185 staff. The traffic volumes associated with that level of development is within the traffic counts that we conducted. So the additional traffic, the proposed traffic identified in table 5, is the additional traffic associated with the expansion of the school. The traffic that's associated with the existing school is already contained in the existing traffic counts.
Okay, so is that new count be increased by the 2.5% times 2 per year, meaning 2 years? Because in the traffic report, it says that the counts were increased to represent 2021 traffic by 2.5% per year. Is
Yes.
that how you came up with that number?
The background traffic counted, not the school traffic, but the background traffic traveling along Poplar and along Deal was increased by 2.5% per year. The increase in the school was based. The increase in the school was based upon the increase in student and staffing.
Okay. Well, with the revision done on February 15th, 2021, did the revised include the influx of people moving into our area during COVID-19? Was that calculated into the new numbers? Where are there new numbers in the revised study February 15th, 2021, or are those numbers still from the study in 2019?
The background data associated with the project is from the 2019 counts and the background growth of 2.5% per year.
Okay, so you're saying that.
Ms. Stein,
Yes.
the one thing is that you can't say there's more people that moved into the township because of COVID. We don't know that.
Okay, well, let me rephrase that with the number of increased students in the last year, which was testified originally.
That's fair.
in the
It's
first
fair.
year.
It's
Okay.
fair. Ms. Terrio, that's a fair statement. We testified that our student body has increased
Right.
based on
Correct.
COVID. So,
Correct.
but again, Justin is talking about background traffic as opposed to, you're talking about increase in school traffic. Those are two different things.
So the increase in school traffic is not really included in the study. If he's talking about
That's not correct. The increase in school traffic is what's projected based upon the calculations that we did. So when I did the counts, we took a snapshot of the students and staff at that point in 2019. It was 891 students and 185 staff. Every bit of the growth to the full build out of this project, which is 1,600 students and 245 staff, every bit of that difference, the net between those two, is accounted for in my trip generation calculations. So now that we know there is additional student population, there's additional staff population there currently in 2021, but that additional growth is incorporated into my projected growth up to the full build out of the 1,600 and the 245.
Okay, so that projected growth is not the 2.5% times 2.
Now, what the 2.5% compounded annually does is acknowledges that there is growth going on in the township. And at the time we conduct a study, we're not aware there's going to be other applications that come in. And so conservatively, we look to the NJDOT for a background growth rate to just account for general growth within an area. And it's based upon regional information and roadway class type specific information published by the NJDOT.
Okay, so your study did not include what was testified about the increase in students then?
That's not what he said.
That's not what I said at all.
All right.
My study
I don't
encompasses
understand.
every bit of the projected growth of the project.
Of the project, okay. All right, you're not answering my question. I don't think I'm going to get it answered.
He
properly
answered your
at this
question.
time.
Your question
I
was,
think he's trying really hard to answer your question. I think what he's saying is he takes a snapshot and he lays out existing conditions and he's applying growth rates, which are the DOT growth rate is pretty standard. I'm not saying it's accurate. Don't get me wrong. I'm just telling you that it's kind of standard to use, but it's better than nothing. And I realize that this area may or may not be different, but we don't have a way to gauge that statistically. But then he laid out his build and no build options over top of the traffic as things move forward. So the report is pretty thorough in terms of it's out. It's if you don't read these things all the time in those tables, it's a little difficult to find. And even if you do, it's a little difficult to find. But
Bill,
I think he did a good job of it.
Yeah, Bill, I think her question is did he take into account the increased growth the school is experiencing now in 2021 because of COVID and people staying here and not going back to the city? And his response is he carried it out further than that to the full 1,600 new students and 245 staff. So he's testified that he's gone beyond the current growth, beyond 19, beyond the current growth, all the way out until it's fully occupied and fully staffed. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's what he's done.
Okay, but the numbers, the numbers just don't add up between the two tables. So, okay.
Well,
all right, and then,
excuse me. That's an editorial comment, and you can certainly.
I apologize.
You can voice that. Justin, is it your testimony that the numbers add up in the tables?
Absolutely, because there's not a direct linear correlation between the number of students and the additional traffic. Because of busing and drop off and different arrival and departure, every bit of that mathematically is based upon the information of the existing school and the projected student staffing at the end of the day.
Okay, and my last question then is, in your professional opinion, would the use of an Ocean Township police officer at peak student drop-off and peak pickup times aid in traffic flow efficiency?
Based on the analysis that we have, I don't think it's necessary.
I'm not asking the analysis, I'm asking in your professional opinion.
He gave you his answer. His answer was no, he doesn't think it's necessary.
Okay, thank you.
You may not like the answer, but that's the answer he's given.
Okay, okay. The safety issue, that's why. All right, thank you. I'm done with questions.
Anyone else from the public with a question?
Oh, I thought about rudeness.
No, that's-
Yes,
I have a
Margaret
question.
Boyce. Margaret Boyce.
Someone got
I
have a question.
iPad 4, who is that?
My name is Shari Lynch. I live at 15 Oak Knoll Road.
Please raise your right hand.
It is.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Okay. You
So
wanna
my
state-
question is, what?
Wait. Please state your name and address again. Just I
Shari
didn't get it.
Lynch. Shari Lynch, 15 Oak Knoll Road.
Okay.
So I just have a question for the traffic. When he goes to change the traffic lights, is there a way that he could also make a little left-hand turn for us to get into our development since he's there? From Deal to Roller? It's impossible. He has to go
What, to Deal Road westbound to Roller? I don't believe.
Going to the left to Roller. It doesn't affect you guys, but it affects us. So with the more traffic.
And
is there-
you're talking about going west on Deal and turning left onto Roller?
Yes.
That's the question, Justin.
We have no proposed modification to that approach of the signal.
Is there a way you can?
I
can't
I
turn
don't
left.
think within the constraints of this, it's
Yeah,
available.
we can't turn now.
Without the jeopardization of the existing movements, I don't believe it's possible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the public? Ms. Weisberg, please state your name and address again.
Yes, Cheryl Weisberg, 5 Oak Tree Lane. My
Yes.
question is regarding traffic heading south on Poplar Road, attempting to go west on Deal Road. What prevents a car from using the proposed fire station or firehouse lot to cut through? They call it a rat run. But what prevents a car from using the firehouse parking lot to avoid waiting at the traffic light in a line of cars?
I would say one, probably the firehouse staff that's in the area. Number two, it's an illegal maneuver to utilize a driveway. And I think should that happen, it may be an enforcement issue with the culmination of this project to deter the people that might think to do that.
You don't consider it a safety concern?
We have designed this to the specifications of the fire department based upon their requirements, and they are comfortable with what is being designed here. And I am as well.
Ms. Weisberg, it's an illegal move. You're not supposed to do it.
Oh, I'm aware of that, but that doesn't prevent anxious people sitting in a line.
But this board and our traffic expert has no right to say anything except that it's an illegal move.
I understand, but I'm well aware of how the public drives in Ocean Township.
Okay. Any other questions from the public?
Jim Bay here.
Wait. Mr. Bay, is that you on Stacy's iPad?
No, I'm the second one in.
All right,
Is time available?
wait. Let's take a question from someone that hasn't asked before. Sir?
Yes, hi.
Raise your right hand, please.
Oh.
Right hand. Where'd you go?
Over here.
Okay, swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Ron Entz. I live at 9 Kenneth Drive. So I'm right
Okay.
off Poplar Road, not too far from the school.
Right.
I have a question for Mr. Taylor, and it's been asked before. My apologies. I know there's been some talk about add in the lane at the light of Poplar and Deal Road to help with the left-hand turn, which makes a lot of sense. But in my experience, a lot of issues are just the opposite direction when you're trying to turn onto Poplar off of Deal Road when everyone's trying to make a left into the school. So the traffic's backed up in the other direction at the light. No one can make a left. And the traffic then backs up on Deal Road almost all the way to the traffic light on 35 at times. I know that's an existing issue and we're not really addressing existing issues, but I suspect that it will get worse unless there is a turning lane to make that left.
You're testifying.
What
is your question to Mr.
What is your question, sir?
Well, are you planning on putting a turning lane on Poplar Road to make the left into the school property so that people can continue on Poplar Road without waiting for the traffic going into the school to make that left onto the property?
No.
I think that question was just asked, sir.
It was, okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Okay. Anyone else from the public?
Okay.
Joy Silva, Deal Road.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
it's been almost 3 hours. Do you think maybe a 5-minute break might help everyone?
No, I just want to go until we fall off. Sure, we can take a break.
Thank you.
Okay, 5 minutes, everyone. What do you think, Mr. Kirk? We ready?
Yes. Before we go through, I would like to, Ms. Krimko, you had entered in exhibits, and I don't believe that they were properly identified or moved in at that point in time. It's just a point of housekeeping, but I'd like to get to it now.
No, we did. I did. I went through them and I said what they were. I'll provide copies to Amy via PDF.
Okay, I just don't know if they were entered in.
They were not entered in evidence. They were only identified.
Okay.
So actually, since your engineer testified to them, you want to move them into evidence, Jennifer?
Yes.
Okay, and that would be exhibits A14 through A20 as labeled?
Correct. And I will get, those are all, most of them you have already, Ron. A14 through A18 were already submitted to the board.
No, I'm simply trying to make certain that we keep the housekeeping as.
Oh,
as
okay,
goes
understood.
on. That's all.
Understood. So yes, I would like them moved in then. I
Yeah,
thought
but-
I did, but now that he's
So
testified.
A14 through A20 is in evidence. You're going to supply labeled ones to.
Well, no, I'm going to supply hard PDFs and I'm assuming Amy will label them in the way she labels them.
Is that okay, Amy? You good with that? She back?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, you can, as long as they're printable, that's fine.
Yeah, or I can send you hard copies, whatever you need, Amy.
Okay.
Which
Amy,
one would you prefer?
before we start again, Amy, could you please call a roll to make sure everybody's here?
Sure.
Thanks.
Mr. Fuller,
Here.
Mr. Malta,
Here.
Mr. Manel. Mr. Manel.
Here, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay, great. No, that's okay. Mr. Van Wagner,
I'm here.
Mr. Worrell,
Here.
Mrs. Beal,
Here.
Mr. Mamie,
Here.
7.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Here.
Chairman Shepherd.
9. We're all here.
Okay,
Okay. So where were we? We're still taking questions from the public. From
Right,
Mr.
and I can just say it, and I had a chance to speak to Justin when we went on break. Justin, you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so we discussed that in addition to going and meeting with the county to discuss the feasibility of what we're proposing, you are going to look at modifying the left turn only lane heading southbound to see if we can squeeze in a left turn into the site to help alleviate the concerns that were raised by 2 of the members of the public.
Yes, it's something I can take a look at and discuss with the county.
Okay, so I just, for those members of the public who raised that issue with the queue turning into the site and backing up the road, we're gonna take a look at that.
Amy, we're
Amy,
getting
please,
some
please.
cross, we're getting
Yeah,
some
please.
cross interference. Can you mute everybody that's not on the board? Or Ms. Grimko, or our professional.
Yes.
Okay, and then we'll take one at a time. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else from the public that has a question?
Yes, I do.
Okay, please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Joy Silva, Deal Road. My question is, when you're going to a school zone, and this was brought up before and I was trying to speak, 99 and 9/10% every school zone is. both private-
Ma'am, you're now testifying.
I'm not,
That's a
okay.
testimony. That's not an evidence.
Are not school zones 25 miles an hour?
That's a good one.
Yes, school zones are 25 miles an hour.
So why will you not be putting a 25-mile-an-hour zone in front of your school?
Because it's not required for our school as a private school.
But private schools do also have private schools also have 25-mile-an-hour zones?
They're not required.
So you are not looking out for the safety of your children?
That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it's
But by how,
operating
but
at 40
you
miles
are
an
saying
hour.
that.
Excuse me, can I please just answer the
Yes.
question? It's currently operating at 40 miles an hour safely.
Which
There
is a
be-
danger though, with the
Ma'am, you're
increase of students,
testifying.
no?
You are
Is
testifying.
it not a danger
He
to
doesn't
have
think so.
45 miles?
He's answered the question. Again, if you don't like his answer, I'm sorry for that. He says it's safe. He says it's appropriate. That's what he says.
But has he looked in,
I
have
don't
you
know.
looked into statistics of school zones that are over 25 miles an hour?
I can tell you over 5 years, there have been 2 accidents at this intersection, 2. Based upon that, I believe that this
At 40
Let
miles
him
an hour
answer. Let
is
him
not,
answer.
I'm
Let
asking
him
a question.
answer.
I'm asking a question.
Let him
Is two-
answer. If you want,
He
no,
did
let's go.
already.
He didn't finish his statement.
Well, it sounded like he paused.
I believe based on the analysis that I just said that the driveway is safe.
But do you not think 2 accidents in 4 years is too many if it involves children?
Well, you don't know what involved children, so you're assuming facts and evidence again. And you don't know what time of
Well,
the day
he
it happened.
said at the school zone, there were 2
He said
accidents.
at the
No,
intersection.
that's not what he said. He testified at the intersection. There were 2 accidents in 5 years.
You know, he's answered your question. You don't like the answer.
But
I'm
for
sorry about
safety
that.
reasons for the children, do you not think 40 miles an hour is too fast?
And he said,
So
Oh.
I believe I've answered the question.
I believe you have, but I don't think that's a safety, not in a safety way.
and Matt, the question has been asked and answered. Please move on. What's your
My
next
sec,
question?
I don't think this is, that'll be it for now. I will join you in the next group of questioning.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public to be heard?
Jim Bay, if it's available.
Mr. Bay, you testified before. Just state your name and address for the record.
Jim Bay, 4 David Street.
Okay, what is your question?
Regarding the 372-foot left turn lane, on Mr. Fitzgerald's report, March 6, paragraph 1A, he had referenced trip projections not proportional. Which IT estimator was used? And my question regarding that is, on the 372 feet, what would the length of the 372 feet be if ITE estimators were used instead of developer submitted?
Is that rain?
So based upon my previous testimony, I do not believe that the ITE trip generation is applicable here, or providing actual relevant data based upon the busing and drop-off characteristics of this school. And so based on the information that we have and based on the existing operations of the facility, we have projected analysis, and that's the results itemized in the traffic study.
Thank you. I did not have a chance to see Mr. Fitzgerald's most recent report. Was he still concerned about the ITE quantities or not?
Bill, why don't you answer that, Bill?
Bill, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
I believe I raised the question at the beginning of the hearing, and Justin said he would look into it a little bit more because we just wanted to know what alternative measures. You know, floor area for some facilities is almost always included, but there are always other parameters. And then they give you a brief statistical analysis indicating rough, I suppose, quality of the estimator. But Justin said he would look at that and get us more information. But I did raise that question early tonight again.
Thank you, Justin. If you have a chance to look into that. When you look into that, Justin, could you run a devil's advocate study of what it would be with the ITE codes? Would the 370 feet be X number of feet if it had used the ITE codes? When you do that study?
I'd have to take a look at what the output of the trip generation is and whether it's relevant to this, but it's something I can coordinate with the board's professional to see whether the analysis needs to be run.
Okay, yes, thank you. Also, I believe Mr. Fitzgerald asked you to take a look at Deal and Highway 35 and run your study at that intersection also. Am I correct or not?
That's not the way I understand it. If Bill wants to chime in, my understanding was we were to include the traffic associated with the improvement on the northeast corner of Deal and 35, and we've agreed to do that as part of an updated analysis.
Yes, so that's what I asked him to do. I asked him not analyze or reanalyze that intersection, but to look at that traffic that's projected to be increased at that intersection with the development proposed there, should it be built, add that into the background traffic for this site.
Okay, then I did misunderstand. So you're not asking him to study 35 and Deal based on the increase from the Hillel. So I did misunderstand that.
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
On Poplar and West Park, is there a need to study the intersection of Poplar and West Park with consideration of the volume of the traffic from the Hillel?
So typically when we look at study locations, we look to both the ITE and the NJDOT, who have both set a threshold of 100 new peak hour trips through an intersection as an intersection in need of study. And the intersection of West Park and Poplar does not meet that criteria. So no, I do not believe that the additional traffic through through West Park and Poplar will rise to a significant impact.
Thank you. Okay.
Any other questions from the public? Yes, Ms. Lambert. Please unmute yourself. Please state your name and address for the record.
Marissa Lambert, 3 Kenneth Drive. I just have some follow-up questions after all the questions for Mr. Taylor. Just since you have a little list of to-dos, I was wondering if you could also confirm for us that it was the full classes the Thursday after Memorial Day. I know that Nanette touched on that, but I'm not sure. Well, let me phrase this. Were you aware that usually Hillel is on a different schedule that week because of exams? And were you aware that not the entire student body that week is usually there at the usual times? And so would you please confirm that for us, that it was a full day with full traffic?
Surely, I can confirm that for you.
And then the other thing that I just want to make sure I understand, because you talked about revisiting the left into the school. Were you meaning the left from Deal Road onto Poplar, not the left from Poplar onto Poplar Place?
No, what we had agreed to, and something we will have to review, is the ability to shorten the southbound left turn lane that we had proposed to accommodate a northbound left turn lane into the Hillel.
Okay.
And that would, I had the chance at the break to, put a pen to paper and take a look at what we can do. And we may be able to squeeze in something that will at least allow storage for a vehicle or two as they wait to turn into the school.
Okay, because I guess that would then answer my question that you had said that there was already an existing problem. And then my question would have been, how wouldn't it become more of a problem if you would have more vehicles and more buses throughout the day?
Well, it's something that we will investigate based upon the geometry that's available.
Great. I look forward to hearing what you find.
Any other questions from the public? Ms. Krimko.
At this point, the only remaining witness I have, other than a statement from the chairman of the board at Hillel, would be our professional planner. And having done this as many years as I've been practicing, you know that it would not be appropriate for me to present my planner until all of the underlying witnesses have finished with their testimony, because the planner's testimony is based upon the proofs from the other witnesses. So at this point,
Correct.
Until we address the comments and concerns that were raised that we committed to, I don't have any other witnesses that would be appropriate at this time. So I'd like to ask for an adjournment. I'd like to schedule a new date, perhaps schedule a date for the next regular meeting of the board for scheduling purposes only, so we don't have to renotice again.
Okay.
And then I would work with the township offices to come up with another special hearing date for which we could do this.
Okay, and Ms. Krimko, when we come up with this, sooner the better, with Mr. Kirk, if we can get everyone together as quickly as possible, because I'm old and I don't want this to carry on until I die.
Understood, Mr. Shepiga, but I do need to give my professionals the time to meet with the county and to do the additional, to review the studies that Mr. Fitzgerald asked them to.
Okay.
So for now, I would just ask that we get carried to the next regular meeting without the need for further notice, at which time hopefully we'll be able to announce the new date.
That would be great.
What is that date? I don't know.
May 20th, I believe.
May 20th.
That's right, yeah.
It's May 20th here.
All right, so we'd ask that this be carried without the need for further notice. We would extend the time that the board has with which to render a decision through the June 20th meeting of the board, just to cover you in case something happens.
I don't think we have a June 20th date, though.
We don't?
We have a May 20th date. What's the date in June, Amy?
June 17th.
Yeah, and the problem with that, Jen, is and you and I can go over this for the extension. On May 20th, we may announce a date that's past that date. I don't know. So
Okay.
if
If that occurs, I will sign the time waiver.
Okay.
I don't have the ability to sign the time waiver tonight, so I'm just giving you the extension to get us to the next meeting.
Mr. Steinberg, is that okay with you?
Yes, and Ms. Grimko will send in, and Amy will give her the appropriate form to sign. She always does. And, obviously we'll carry it to this will be carried to the meeting of May 20th, 2021, which is at 7:30 p.m. on Zoom, at which time no testimony will be taken, but a new date, probably a special meeting date, will be given.
Correct.
Understood.
But there will not be any further notice to the public by way of certified mailings or by way of newspaper publication, but it will be announced at that meeting and then carried on the township website thereafter.
Again, understood. Okay, so I'll make a motion to close this hearing tonight. Need a second from someone?
Second.
Okay, I'd like to thank the board and the professionals and the public. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Have a good night.
Good night.
All right.